All right, good evening, everyone. Today is September 10th, 2025. This is the full board meeting for the School District of Waukesha Board of Education. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Before we begin tonight, in light of today's events, I do have something I'd like to say. Thank you. I'd like to ask everyone, as we stand for the pledge tonight, to reflect on our responsibilities as Americans, as neighbors, to one another and to our children, to be stewards of our Constitution and the unalienable rights granted to us as one nation under God. Let us remember that with the freedom to express our beliefs comes the responsibility to respect those who think differently. Let us remember that our children look to us as role models of strength and stability in times of confusion and change. May we work together to resolve our disagreements with respect, humility, and compromise rather than anger and violence. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mrs. Ettinger, can you please take the roll call?
Eric Brooks.
Here.
Natalie Gren.
Here.
Thomas Harlan.
Here.
Betty Koenig.
Here.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Here.
Diane Voigt. Here. David Wad.
Here.
Anthony Zenobia.
Here.
Kelly Piasek.
Here. And Ms. Ettinger, can you please verify that the meeting has been properly posted?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. We are going to begin with recognitions tonight, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Siebert, who will introduce Kyle McCarthy and Chad Carabell.
All right, thank you, Dr. Piasek. We're going to bring in their team, and we'll wait till all the men and women get in here. It's a big group. Well, thank you all for joining us. It is absolutely our pleasure to have you here tonight. Bright Lights is a time when we recognize just excellence in the School District of Waukesha, and we have so much to be proud of. And tonight we really want to celebrate our custodial and maintenance departments, our service building as a whole. They are remarkable men and women who 12 months a year, 24 hours a day are taking care of all of our needs to make sure that our kids have great places to learn, our teachers have great places to teach, and that our facilities are gleaming and beautiful. So we're very proud of you. You're working here tonight as we honor you, and you're bringing in chairs. And I think the other thing to recognize about this group is, you know, we think about school in the summer, and it's a time for relaxation, it's a time for people to be off, and these are the people that are here grinding it out, making sure that all of us come back to these beautiful, gleaming facilities. So I just want to say thank you. Your work does not go unnoticed by any of us. It's critically important, and you make a major difference in the School District of Waukesha each and every day, and it's because of you that we have the beautiful facilities and learning environments that we do. So I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Clark, and then I'm going to ask Mr. McCarthy and Mr. Caribou to make a few comments.
Yeah, it's important to point out as we are getting ready for this agenda item that over the last 6 summers, we've had major work going on, and we've put about $95 million into our facilities over that stretch, impacting just about every building over that time, along with a lot of other major projects. And the coordination between the custodial and maintenance staff and our vendors who assist us with that work, and staff, and most importantly, and principals, as things change. And COVID's probably the best example, where we went from doing nothing during the school year to all out. We had total access within a few weeks. We were up and had a completely different construction schedule going forward. So I couldn't be prouder of the work that has been accomplished. At F&F on Monday, if you didn't watch it, we had it must have been about a half-hour presentation, and just to give you a sampling of the work was done. But as I mentioned that night, I had them take 12 slides out, and we probably could have had 20, 30, 40 more slides. of all the things that you're accomplishing with your work every day. So it's really important, and I couldn't be prouder. It's not only the great work, but the quality of the people that I get to work with and oversee every day. It's just a true honor to work with you.
Awesome. So, Kyle, Chad, anything you guys would like to say on behalf of the people that you get to lead, and thank you for your service as well.
Welcome. Thank you for having us tonight. I just wanted to reiterate what we talked about on Monday. Thank you for finding the funds to make these projects happen. It motivates us to keep going. So, like I said, we'll give you a plan. You give us the footprint, and we'll keep moving forward. So, thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And I do echo everything that has been said, great things about this group here. There's a lot that obviously cannot be here tonight because they're all working, but this is a good representation of who we are and what we do. An incredible group of staff, and we're super proud of them, so thank you for having us.
You bet.
Is anyone else? Okay, I saw we have a few folks want to say something. Mrs. Koenig, why don't you start?
Thank you. A few years back, when I was elected to the school board, a few weeks after I was sworn in, one of the first things I wanted to do was to take a tour of the maintenance and facilities building. And I remember Kyle and Chad looking at me and saying, "Really? You want to come see?" I'm like, "Yeah, I want to come see. I want to see where this magic happens," because I watched what you did with Blair. I've worked with many of you. I know how hard you work, and I wanted to go where the magic happens, where all the master craftsmen and women work. So I went and toured, and just the pride when I was going around during that tour and everyone was sharing what they do and, well, this is where we do this and this is where we do that. It was so incredibly heartwarming because I was proud of you, but just to see how internalized, it is for you that you love this district and you pour your heart and souls into it. And I couldn't be prouder. You are all amazing. And I've toured the schools for the Optimizing Our Future plan, and, going around and having things pointed out, the pride that just oozed out of you that were there that night when I toured. It is so obvious that your heart and souls are in this district, and it's evident. Our schools are beautiful. Like I said, I've seen what you've done working in the district. I see what you do now, and I just want to thank you and tell you how you're amazing. You're all amazing. Thank you.
I see a lot of nodding. Anyone else? Turns out we had a little bit of rain just a couple weeks before school started, and you all were right on top of that. That was a lot. We get quite a bit of snow here in Wisconsin too, and I see how you all just kind of leap into service of the whole district, making sure that kids can get where they need to be and the teachers have what they need. And so we couldn't be more grateful and appreciative of your willingness to serve and your creativity. There isn't a problem I don't think you don't know how to solve. So very, very grateful. Ms. Kozlowski.
Thanks. We are so grateful for the work that you do. I had mentioned at the FNF meeting on Monday to please pass on a heartfelt thank you to each and every one of the members of the staff that do what you do, because what we see is once a year in an update, the relationships that you have with the staff, with the students, and what you do for the benefits and the safety and cleanliness of our buildings is remarkable. I'm blown away every year when we get to see the presentation of what you guys do within our buildings, the work that's done, the expertise, the knowledge. It's really, really awesome. I need you guys all to really just hear how much you are appreciated and how grateful we are for making our schools as good as they are.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you for taking the time to be here tonight. We appreciate you. All right, we will begin with our student representatives in the month of October. So tonight we're going to move into our citizen speakers. We are now at the section of the meeting where there's an opportunity for citizens to speak. We have 17 speakers this evening. Because there are more than 6, each individual will be limited to 3 minutes. We will signal the speaker at 2.5 minutes to begin to wrap up their comments. We expect all speakers to honor our time limit, refrain from using any inappropriate language, and to be respectful in their comments. Speakers who do not meet these expectations may be prohibited from speaking at future board meetings. Speakers are here to address the board, not the audience. The school board does not endorse any comments made by members of the community here tonight. We would like to remind our community members of the impact of their words on others and that our children are watching. We commit to communicating with you in respectful and productive ways, and we ask you to do the same. We also expect that the audience will be respectful of the speaker and of the board and will refrain from responding with verbal comments, cheering, applause, or other behavior that will detract from the meeting. Please note that no obstructions can be created between the board and the audience. Visual aids cannot be used, and the area behind the speaker and podium should be clear during public comment. Also, in order to respect our speakers and meeting participants, please silence your cell phones. I will announce the speaker and the speaker that will be coming after each speaker so that you can prepare. I appreciate folks holding their applause so that we can move as quickly as possible. And to the extent that we can minimize the noise in the gallery, that will also allow us to continue moving. If it becomes too difficult for us to hear what's going on, we'll have to pause. So if we could just continue to move through as efficiently as possible, we would appreciate that. So we are going to begin with our first speaker tonight, which is Helen Bishark, followed by Brittany Larson. Or Bishara, I apologize.
Bishara,
Okay.
you got it.
Welcome.
Not a common last name, and it's from the Middle East, so happens a lot. Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a parent of 2 children at Hawthorne Elementary School. They are actually in the back with me because I had to bring them along. And a proud member of this community. I just wanted to start by saying that I'm actually very disappointed. Disappointed in this board, disappointed in the district as a whole. You've let the loudest voices dictate the decisions that you guys are making, and that's why I'm here tonight. The result is shown in options E and F. I had a lot more hopes up for options E and F. The families who have stayed quiet are the ones that are getting cut, and particularly the families at Hawthorne Elementary. Many of whom don't always have the same platform to raise their voices, and that's why I'm actually coming here tonight. Hawthorne is now on the chopping block in 5 of the 6 options, and in the 6th option, as you guys know, the dual language program gets cut, and that is unacceptable for a lot of us at Hawthorne. So Hawthorne Elementary has over half of its students being Hispanic, and targeting schools like that, it's not leadership. It is a failure. The district gains a benefit, but the students of the school are paying the price. And what is their benefit in return? That hasn't been made known to us. I expected more, a plan that projected and strengthened the dual language program, a plan that put students first and not spreadsheets first. Instead, we have proposals that divide us, Bethesda versus Hawthorne, one petition against another, and parents are forced to fight for their schools rather than trust in a district and trust that the district has a vision for all kids. You are sowing disruption and confusion and not unity or trust. So tonight, I want to challenge you guys to create another option and don't just shuffle the same deck of cards. Be visionaries, be bold, and think beyond the problem that is in front of you and use the excess that the consolidation is going to create to build something better. Build something stronger. If we are on a track to be debt-free here in a couple of years, how can we use that
30
margin
seconds.
to create a better permanent STEM hub? How can we expand dual language so more families gain access, not less? We're shrinking it right now. We have an opportunity right now to build something better, and while not everyone will be happy because change is difficult, trying to wrap it up fast. So point is, don't shrink, 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 build and lead. Show this community that you can use a painful moment to create something greater for all of our kids.
Your time is
Booyah, right at 3 minutes.
We will continue. Folks, if we could continue without applause, I would appreciate it. Next up is Brittany Larson, followed by Candace Hatfield. Brittany.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm the proud product of the Waukesha School District, and so I very much appreciate the education that I received all those years ago. I also appreciate the education my children are currently receiving. We have 2 of them in the Waukesha School District. So I want to thank all the efforts that have been made by the staff and the teachers and the school board up until this point to give them that education. So thank you for that. I have taken the time to attend the original Optimizing the Future presentation. I've watched the Phase 2 video. I reviewed the board work session this past week. And I also reviewed the 2024 capacity study by Bray. And so that was very interesting to review. Something that I noticed in that study, the Bray study, it defined enrollment capacity as the maximum number of students that a school building can satisfactorily accommodate at one time for the particular educational program and curriculum offered. And the word maximum kind of stuck out in my mind there, and I thought about that for a minute. And I know class size methodologies were run in this report as well. And I know that we do have projected enrollment challenges ahead of us. So I don't think that's disputed. And I know we have to always be looking at a lens of fiscal responsibility and sustainability. Those are important to consider. When I look at those options, though, I want to make sure that we are also considering the lens of achievement, classroom management, and safety as well. And we know that when we're talking about capacity, we are talking about increasing class sizes. We also know that the projected enrollment declining will reduce that over time a little bit, and I want to acknowledge that. However, I would endorse considering the least aggressive class seat reduction option at this time, so it gives us a chance to see if those projections do come true, and then it allows our students over the next years to not be impacted by larger classroom sizes, which will be impacted by classroom management. I just think it gives the best chance for achievement. And so I wanted to thank you all again, and I appreciate your time.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Next up will be Candace Hatfield, followed by Harper Kraus.
Hello, my name is Candace Hatfield, and I'm a parent of 3 children at Waukesha's dual language program, 1 at Butler and 2 at Hawthorne. I'm here tonight not just as a parent, but as an advocate for a program that has deeply impacted my family and many others. While we understand the difficult decisions ahead regarding school closures, our primary concern is not about saving a building, it's about saving a program. The dual language program is a unique and powerful opportunity that fosters bilingualism, cultural competence, and academic achievement. Enrollment numbers show that options A through D would not support the current number of dual language students. We appreciate the options E and F acknowledge the need for a 3rd site. However, we urge the board to ask for a proposal that has a 3rd dual language location that is centralized, just as you're considering for the STEM program, to make it safe and accessible for all families. Transportation is a critical factor. With the current options, 196 dual language students at Hawthorne will be displaced. Hawthorne families were already moved once from Blair, and the majority of the dual language students at Hawthorne are the neighborhood kids. They're not transfers, as you see at other dual language sites. The dual language families will be forced to attend monolingual neighborhood schools due to transportation barriers, leading younger students whose English literacy is still developing will be at a significant disadvantage. We need to protect their progress and ensure equitable access. 4 years ago, my family chose to stay in Waukesha specifically because of this program. Being able to give my kids this unique gift of being bilingual is something I never thought I would have the opportunity to do, and I'm so grateful. Watching them confidently communicate with Spanish-speaking community members outside of school is incredibly rewarding. This program doesn't just retain families, it also attracts them. My children at Hawthorne have had classmates from other neighboring communities like Brookfield and Exonia and beyond. Dual language and STEM are signature programs of this district, so let's build a future where both can grow and thrive. Please make a centralized dual language program a priority. Let's ensure it remains accessible, sustainable, and a source of pride for Waukesha.
Thank you. Next is Harper Kraus, followed by Madison Gonzalez. Harper?
Hi, my name is Harper, and I'm now in 6th grade at Butler, but I used to go to Bethesda. I wanted to say thank you for listening to our community and all the great things about Bethesda and coming up with other options that don't include closing Bethesda. An update from last time, our green team had applied for the Whole Kids Garden grant last spring, and we recently found out it was awarded to Bethesda. One of the focuses with this money will be making our outdoor classroom space accessible for special education students. I know you have heard a lot about all the programs and things about our building that make Bethesda great, but I want to also tell you how great the teachers and staff are. The teachers truly care about us and our passions, even outside of school. I'd like to give you just a few examples. Sometimes our teachers will ask us for our sporting event schedules and spend their evening or weekend to come to cheer us on to show their support. One year, my brother was so excited to tell his class about his birthday and gifts, he rode his new Power Wheels to his teacher's house to show it off and deliver her some birthday cake. Also, when one of my friends' parents was deploying in the military, the teacher arranged making cards from all of us to read during his plane ride. I could keep going on. Our teachers and staff are so amazing. Once a Bobcat, always a Bobcat. Thank you.
Thank you, Harper. Next up is Madison Gonzalez, followed by Paul Reese.
Good evening. My name is Madison Gonzalez. I am one of many parents who have been very active in this decision-making process of the Optimizing the Future plan. I have rallied, I have spoken at 2 other board meetings alongside my son. I have attended the board workshop for this plan, and I attended 4 input sessions over the summer with over 150 questions for my Post-its. I only want to speak to my experience in my input sessions and the workshop last week and what I feel needs to be done before any decision can be made. As I stated, I attended 4 input sessions, and I know that it's been asked a few times why a parent would feel the need to attend so many. It wasn't the intention to flood the input sessions, but many questions went unanswered, and options A through D had very little research and impact assessments to back them up. Then I attended my second input session with even more questions on behalf of myself and other families that couldn't attend. And every time I went to a different session, it was new answers and different reasons as to why our school, Bethesda, was being cut. It was mentioned in the workshop last week that the survey sent out after our sessions has a strong bias, and I agree. The survey was very biased, but I had mentioned that in my first session and every session after. I stated that the result of that survey would either be biased or generate very little response due to parents not wanting to choose in a forced ranking that wouldn't accurately depict what we felt was the best decision. Myself included, I chose not to take the survey at all. After attending the workshop that was held last week, I was happy to hear the district coming up with other plans like E and F, which seem to be favored over options A through D. Bethesda is a home for our dual language students, and we do it excellently. And I agree in the district's discussion that Bethesda should be kept as one out of the 2 or 3 schools for dual language to be held at. In that meeting, it was also stated kids in 5th grade will be left in a lot of changes over the next couple of years if we decide to move 6th grade back into the elementary schools. I think moving 6th grade back into elementary could help clear up capacity at the middle schools and could be the least disruptive. But regardless of my own opinion, I understand that consolidation needs to happen, but I feel that it is irresponsible and reckless to make a decision as big as this and execute it in such a short timeline, especially without any impact assessments to ensure that whatever decision is made with as much clear and concise evidence and research. I do, however, want to thank you for taking the time to interact with us and listen to our opinions.
30
meet with the
seconds.
parents that came up with other proposals, and having tough conversation about how important Bethesda is to our neighborhood. I hope you keep all of what we've said in mind when making a final decision that can be both financially beneficial to the district while also being ethically beneficial to our children's education. Thank you.
Thank you, Madison. Next up is Paul Reese, followed by Jeremy, I think it's Zimdars.
Good evening. Tonight to talk about, in the last few months, there's been some good discussion and some silly discussion about our Optimizing the Future program. First, some of the good things is the dual language program. The proposals to combine dual language into two sites is a solid, logical proposal. It is an immersion proposal, it is peer-reviewed, and it is solid. It is what I would expect from an administration. It is the way to get the most out of a curriculum that we spend a lot of money on. So it is what is best, but this also causes a lot of hardship for people having to drive kids around if they want to open enroll, if they want to get into it, and having to drive across town. As any parent knows, that is just, you're going in all different directions. So you have two things that are true that are in competition with one another. My opinion is you don't let perfect be the enemy of good. I think you need something on the other side of town. We don't want to do that. And so that is where I fall on that. And I really hope that this goes that way. Now, the silly part of this is to imply that someone's racist about it, that you're being racist, that you're undermining this. The amount of money that this district has spent in making the two curriculums match each other, line up with one another, is incredible what we've done. Another thing that was talked about was, in the case of a school shooting at Bethesda or anywhere else, to let the kids run around the neighborhood. Someone said they'd rather have the kids run around, to run the safety, because it's such a great neighborhood. That is one of the silliest, most naive things I've ever heard, and most dangerous things I've ever heard. You don't understand what you don't understand. When you're looking at Bethesda and you see it as it is, it's going to change dramatically in a situation like that. The police are going to come in, and they're going to come in fast. They're going to be listening to the radio. It is not going to be, they do not have time to pay attention to every kid running around. What if they strike a kid? Now you've taken time away. Now they have to treat that child that has been running through the neighborhood. They also have a problem with, if they're approaching a building, kids coming out. You have other targets. You don't know if it's good or bad. And if you come to a building and there's kids running around in the neighborhood, or in the area, you don't know what, you have all these targets. That you don't know it, you have to decide what's good and what's bad. When people do tactics and they say you need doors, it is to give tactical advantage to them. That's why they want doors on buildings inside classrooms. It's not an if, it's a must, because a tactical advantage is everything in a situation like this, and you have to trust those who know. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Jeremy. I'll let you say your last name. I can't read the writing. Followed by Zoila Martinez.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Zimdars. Thank you for your time today. I'm here today because my daughter is in second grade at Lowell Elementary. Some days she seems all grown up, 7 going on 17, and I have to remind myself she's only in second grade. Not so long ago, she was my little baby, and I guess she always will be. Before we even brought our daughter home from the hospital, she took a test. When the nurse told us that she had referred on her hearing test, we thought there must be an error. It was just fluid buildup in her ear canal. She would pass her next test. But 2 months later, she referred again, and that's when an audiologist at Children's Hospital gave us the news. Annabelle had profound hearing loss in her left ear. The technical name for it is unilateral sensorineural hearing loss. She would need hearing assistance to hear properly for the rest of her life as a result. At first, we felt alone, afraid, and confused. How would this impact our little girl's life? How would her speech develop? How would she get bullied at school? She struggled with speech early on. She hardly spoke as a toddler. She was always very intelligent and highly active, but she had developed a complacent nonverbal communication system. Because I worked from home and I stayed home to watch her, I knew what she was trying to say without her ever having to say it. I suppose that was a good thing and a bad thing. Before she turned 2, we were connected with a program at Here Wisconsin. It was a toddler communication group that helped toddlers under the age of 3. It was structured to encourage the youngsters to interact and use their voices. We met in West Dallas twice a week for about 2 hours at a time. The group was phenomenal, and just weeks into the program, COVID happened and changed everything. We had to go pretty much virtual sessions with that toddler communication group during the pandemic. And she saw her speech pathologist virtually as well during that period. We learned speech techniques and worked with her daily, but the virtual approach didn't make the process any easier for her to learn how to speak. Finally, when she turned 3, she was eligible for a special DHH program at a local school in Waukesha. That program was unique, had a proven track record, and only existed at Lowell Elementary School in Waukesha. Lowell Elementary is the only school in the district that is equipped to help DHH children find their voice in the classroom. With a dedicated staff that helps support their development, an investment has been made in the school that makes it very unique and DHH friendly. No other school in the district offers these services or features.
30 seconds.
Including my daughter, numerous children have benefited from this program, creating a tightly knit community that watches out for, supports, and motivates each other in ways I could have never imagined. That silent 3-year-old that didn't talk to anyone, myself included, opened up during this program and hasn't stopped talking since. I don't know where she'd be without the help that she's received at Lowell. Closing Lowell would be a mistake that could reshape the outcome of future Waukesha DHH kids who would no longer have the option to work on their speech and communication skills in a community setting similar to what we have here. Please don't close Lowell. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have, is it Zoila
Yes, you.
Martinez?
Yes.
And followed by Nick Pula. Go ahead.
Buenas noches, mi nombre es Zoila Martínez Murray. Soy mamá de un estudiante en la escuela Hawthorne y estoy aquí porque me preocupa mucho la posibilidad de que cierren la escuela y quiten el programa de español e inglés. Mi hijo está en el programa y he visto con mis propios ojos lo valioso que es. Gracias a él, no solo está aprendiendo inglés con seguridad, también mantiene y valora el español, que es parte de nuestra cultura y de nuestra familia y de nuestra comunidad. Para mí, eso significa que puede comunicarse con sus abuelos, que no pierde su identidad y que al mismo tiempo tendrá más oportunidades académicas y profesionales en el futuro. El programa Dual no es simplemente aprender otro idioma, es abrir puertas y dar confianza y enseñar a los niños a valorar la diversidad. Hawthorne no es solo una escuela, es un espacio donde nuestros hijos se sienten incluidos, apoyados y orgullosos de ser quienes son. Si cierran la escuela o eliminan el programa, se perdería realmente algo que está funcionando y que está cambiando vidas. Por eso les pido que reconsideren esta decisión. Y somos muchos los padres que valoramos y defendemos este programa. Queremos que nuestros hijos sigan creciendo bilingües, con orgullo de su identidad y con más oportunidades para el futuro. Les pido que nos ayuden a proteger la escuela Hawthorne y este proyecto tan valioso. I bet most of you didn't understand what I just said, and that's why I'm here. I don't want that look that most of you have right now on my kid's face. I want him to be able to understand what everybody else is saying, like one of my friend Candace just said. It makes you feel, as a parent, it makes you feel very proud when your child understands more than one language at such short age. What you're doing right now and what you're offering right now, it's not enough for our children. We need to keep dual language accessible for all the kids. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next up will be Nick Pula, followed by Melissa Toledo.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Bruce Shula. I go to Les Paul Middle School as an 8th grade student. I am speaking out against Lowell Elementary's closure. I do not think it's reasonable for Lowell Elementary to close because of its accommodations to so many students, including me. So many students in previous years and current years, and possibly in the future, have been accommodated by these accessibilities. Deaf students, students with cognitive disabilities, students that need other emotional learning abilities or accommodations. They all can go easily accessible from 3 and up to Lowell Elementary. And I think that's very important to keep in mind because Lowell has the best DSA program, and Lowell focuses on that DSA program pretty much. Another reason why I think that Lowell shouldn't close is because of Stephen Carpenter. In 2010, a former Lowell staff, Stephen Carpenter, unfortunately passed away, and the PTO has resumed their legacy through a tradition called the Stephen Carpenter Scholarship. That scholarship basically is just in honor of Stephen Carpenter, and clubs in Lowell would completely disrupt that, disrupt the tradition in the community that Lowell has built over the last 60-something years. Lastly, another reason why I think that Lowell should stay is because many students move to this school district because of Lowell, because some districts around us, the Milwaukee Public School District, for example, does not have as good as deaf supportive schools as Lowell Elementary does. And I think Lowell really helped with the district when it came to accommodations. And I think closing Lowell will disrupt all of this. And
30 seconds.
And please do not let Lowell close for the community, for the students, and most importantly for the caring and nice staff that works at Lowell. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. Next up is Melissa Toledo, followed by Megan Ippolite.
Buenas tardes a todos. Good evening, everyone. I'm a Bethesda dual language kinder parent who choices to Bethesda, for those who don't know, and thank you for the opportunity to speak once again. For the last decade, I've worked in technology sales in corporate America, and much of that time I focused on Latin America, leveraging my Spanish to earn a 6-figure salary while traveling across Central and South America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Just last week, I took a leap into something new, joining Bethesda as a short-term teacher aide in a dual language classroom. In just 5 days, I've witnessed remarkable dedication from the staff, like learning and trying to speak Spanish, although not required for their role. My son even told me excitedly over dinner on Monday that his art and gym teachers both try to speak Spanish to them. I'm grateful the district live streamed last week's workshop. However, I was disappointed by the many unanswered questions, the ongoing data gaps, reliance on flawed metrics, especially that derive from a survey that included forced answers, and a focus only on strength themes, which skew the narrative. I'm also concerned by the assumption that dual language enrollment will continue to decline, especially when there's been little investment. Consider this. The parent testimonial video on the SDW website is 11 years old. That's over a decade. The program isn't widely advertised. One reason was because of a doubt or assumption that families won't travel for it, and this was said by the administration. There are discrepancies amongst admin and board over who qualifies for bus support in dual language. A key program contact left and will not be backfilled. That is not investment in the program. And when families must choose between ESL and dual language, who is advocating for the value and importance of dual language for those children? We've heard the board's commitment to preserving and growing unique programs. Dual language is one of those, so why not invest in it and allow it to truly thrive? Finally, I know the request was made for a plan that works over 10 years. Although I understand the why behind this request, it risks overlooking program-specific needs that require careful planning and consideration. And once those buildings are gone, programs moved, and community is disrupted, there's no looking back. If projections shift or decisions proves flawed, we have left ourselves with no
30
flexibilities to
seconds.
adjust. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next speaker is Megan Ippolite, followed by Elizabeth Nelson.
Good evening. It's nice to see all of you. David Wad said, "Don't damage what we do well." And those words capture exactly what's at stake here. Bethesda is what the district does well. It's the #1 choice in school in the district because families across the city know that when you walk into Bethesda, you belong. Bethesda embraces everyone with open arms, creating a culture of community that drives academic success. Parents don't just choose Bethesda for its strong test scores. They choose it because it is welcoming, inclusive, and connected. Our PTO proves this every day as they plan for 2 possibilities. 1, if Bethesda closes, they plan to use those funds to make the best final year for our students. And 2, if Bethesda stays open, they will use those same funds to welcome new families with events, parties, community events, to build connections. That's what Bethesda is. Not just a school, not just a community builder. It is a community builder. And that is something we cannot afford to lose. Bethesda also gives the district something that it needs for the future: capacity and flexibility. On the west side, some schools can only hold 300 to 400 students. Bethesda can serve well over 550, providing the space to balance enrollment long-term. That capacity is also a strength for our dual language program. If we want to keep growing dual language, and we should, we need larger buildings that can support multiple sections while giving students flexibility, stability, and access. Bethesda is also the only school designed with a truly flexible layout, allowing staff to adapt those spaces as class sizes change, programs, and student needs. We have a unique opportunity right now to rework and strengthen our district for the future. But we do have to do it in a way that preserves what we do well and keeps our programs and services intact as we make that shift. District-wide feedback from the listening sessions were consistent. Families want phased transitions. No matter which plan is chosen, redistricting should be phased in by starting with the youngest incoming class and the first middle school entry point. That way, current students stay with their teachers, friends, and support personnel while new students begin in their new schools from the start. This protects stability for all kids, and it is especially critical for special education
30
and
seconds.
dual language students, where consistency in services and peer groups makes all the difference. Bethesda shows us what works: academic strength, high capacity, flexibility, and a welcoming community. Preserving it honors the feedback you've gathered from the district and the values we say we hold as a district. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker is Elizabeth Nelson, followed by Mitchell Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Elizabeth Nelson. I am a parent of a Bethesda student. Shocker, I know. I just wanted to thank the board for all of their time over the last 3 months. Since in June, when this was all announced, you guys have been so thorough with answering our emails, taking individual meetings with our group, being participants in the optimizational sessions, so many feedbacks, so many emails. When this is all over, we're gonna miss you guys. I promise I'll still come to meetings, but I'm here tonight because many are criticizing Bethesda because of how hard we have fought from the beginning for our school, and it's not fair. We have put countless hours, the royal we, into use and to helping save our school. And now, 3 months after the oppositional plans were first announced, this room is suddenly full, when the last board meeting had about a fourth of this attendance. Our movement, yes, a movement, should not be chastised for being loud, because we've advocated from the beginning and done months and months of work. At this point, we all need to work together and build the best district that we can. No working on islands, no pitting schools against each other. We all want the best thing for our kids. Speaking of our kids, my kiddo wanted to come tonight, but it is the second week of school and he's already overtired, so he wrote a speech that he would like me to share with you guys tonight. This is his top 5 reasons why he wants to keep Bethesda open. He's in 2nd grade, and we need to work on spelling, but number 1 is I love my school. Number 2 is I want to stay with my friends. Number 3, I love walking to school with my mom because we get to talk. Number 4, I feel safe at school. And number 5, this was a personal one for him. He would like more show and tell in 2nd grade. He's very upset that that kind of goes away as he gets older. He says, quote, "I have a lot to show and I have a lot to tell." little chuckle for the evening. The room is heavy tonight. I really want us all to work together. The Bethesda crew wants to work with all the other families. We want to come up with the best solution for our kiddos. We've heard a lot of the work that we've done being repeated here tonight, so it sounds like a lot of us are on the same page. And I just want to thank you guys all again. These are not easy decisions. Obviously, some things need to change, and we just really appreciate all the work that you've been doing, so thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mitchell Gallagher, followed by Karen Fraley.
Thank you again for your time and the opportunity to speak. We appreciate the time you've offered to the entire community to discuss this topic. Personally, I've come to learn more than I ever could have imagined from the beginning of this process about the district, its facilities, processes, and offerings across the board. So I really have truly learned quite a lot. It's no secret that our group initially formed due to Bethesda's inclusion in all 4 options, but our focus truly has evolved. As I hope we've effectively shown so far, we are now dedicated to contributing in a way that helps the district lay a strong foundation for the future. While we dislike the idea of any school closing, we understand the necessity and benefits of consolidating services to benefit all students. We have strived to objectively create proposals and ideas that truly optimize the future and that we have shared with you. We cannot envision a future for the district that excludes Bethesda. The value is clear. Overwhelming family choice in a well-established dual language program, large building capacity, and invaluable 4K services for the West Side community, and as a future student pipeline, to name just a few. My intention up here is not to stand here and beg for Bethesda to stay open, but to ask you to consider the many families across the district that choice into Bethesda and what the school offers not only the neighborhood, but the entire SDW community. The results speak for themselves, and we are ready to welcome new families and ensure a smooth transition. If for some reason you do determine that closing Bethesda is in the best interest of the district, I would just ask you don't use the cost of the walls as a reason, especially without obtaining additional quotes or exploring alternative plans. Any potential renovation costs are quickly offset by the savings, and not all of the construction may even be necessary. It's worth remembering that all buildings will require investment regardless of what option is implemented. The topic of middle schools and the long-term utilization of them continues to be a crucial point that is not being addressed publicly, and the focus has remained on the elementary schools. In a number of our meetings, members of the board that we've spoken with have privately voiced concerns about the middle schools and their lack of support for the 2018 referendum. Hearing this point come out openly during last week's workshop was honestly a breath of fresh air. As you review all of the proposals, I hope you can continue to consider community-submitted proposals that are focused on long-term, innovative, and creative solutions for the current and future students of Waukesha at every level. As Ms. Kozlowski stated last week, the board cannot be scared to do the right thing, even if it is hard. Finally, I want to reiterate how much your continued openness and communication from day one of this process truly has meant to us. You have all absolutely have been an open book. Giving the community the platform for feedback and discussion so freely is undoubtedly invaluable to us, and I would imagine you as well. So truly, thank you. I know we all appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thank you. Next up is Karen Fraley, followed by Bernie Gonzalez.
Good evening. My name is Karen Fraley, and I'm the parent of dual language students at Butler and Bethesda. And I'd like to start off by thanking the board for your hard work and openness to engaging with the community throughout this process. And I was relieved to see options E and F come out last week, and to know that there is a chance that Bethesda will get to stay open. I asked my 4th grader if she wanted to add anything to my comments tonight, and she said that I should tell you to keep Bethesda open, and that if she were here herself, she would use her loudest voice, so you should probably wear earplugs. As the parent of a current 6th grader, however, one thing I don't like seeing in option E, as well as in some of the original options, is the middle schools being over capacity. This is such a critical age of development, and being in crowded classrooms right on the heels of disruptive changes, whatever those changes might be, is a recipe for trouble. And sure, declining enrollment will solve that eventually, but our kids shouldn't be paying the price in the present to make the numbers look better in the future. But I'm also concerned about a number of issues that remain, including the fact that Hawthorne is now on the chopping block in a lot of the plans. I don't actually think we should close any of the elementary schools at this point, and I think if we move 6th grade down, as in option F, we don't have to. We have some fantastic schools in this district, each with their own unique characteristics, and I would love to see us go back to the idea that former Superintendent Todd Gray had of making each school a unique magnet, whether that's arts at Summit View, dual language at Banting, Bethesda, Hawthorne, and higher, having one of our schools focus on environmental education, having one of our schools develop a sister school relationship with a school in another country. These are the types of things that would balance enrollment among all of our elementary schools, give all of our students the opportunity to find the right learning environment for them, and keeping all elementaries open would allow us to maintain small class sizes that are so educationally beneficial for our kids. It's also something that would draw people into the district, but if we do end up coming to a place where we need to make a tough decision and close an elementary school, then what we need, and what I think we lack right now, is a fully objective basis on which to make that tough call. That's why I'm calling on the board tonight to commission an impact study from an impartial third party so that we can grasp the full picture of what any given plan would mean for everyone affected. From the number of transitions, for example, like how many transitions would redistricting create, especially if capacities are full, so that people who are choiced into a particular school right now aren't able to stay there. We also need to know what it would mean for special ed students, for transportation, for the impact on low-income families, et cetera. And we really need that information to come from an unbiased third party who
30
doesn't have
seconds.
horse in this race, so it's fair to everyone. Objective data is our way forward to get a high-quality education for our kids with the minimum amount of disruption. We should also continue to seek more community input. During the board workshop, it was pointed out you've only heard from a small fraction of the 80,000 people in this district. So why not mail a physical survey to all the households? That way you can get ideas and feedback from a broader cross-section of people. And I ask that you postpone the implementation until the 27-28 school year. No matter what happens, there's going to be big changes. And as so frequently been said, our district is not in a crisis.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bernie Gonzalez, followed by Jasmine Gonzalez.
Good evening. Thanks for having me here. My name is Bernie Gonzalez. I'm a proud parent of 2 children who go to Hawthorne Elementary School. I'm also, I came here when I was 15 years old. There was an excellent bilingual program which enabled me to learn English quickly. And at the age of 18, it actually enabled me to join the military and serve honorably in the U.S. Army. My 2 boys also, my 2 older boys, also attended elementary school here in Waukesha. They're both now engineers. So I'd like to say that I've been very proud of the district. You know, I consider myself and my children part of the product of the school district of Waukesha, and I'd like for my younger daughters to have the same. Hawthorne has been an excellent school. The dual language program is giving a lot of children valuable tools for them to continue in their lives and have productive careers, opening more doors for them and also enabling them to be bilingual just like myself. So I'd like for you to consider seriously not closing Hawthorne or finding an alternative in which we provide the dual language in different parts of the city and not logistically just having one area. It would be a nightmare for a lot of the parents. So with that, I'd like to all to consider, I know someone said to be careful what we say here and when we're speaking to our children, but I'd like to tell you to be careful with the decisions that you make because that will have a far more impact on our children to go to our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Jasmine, are you ready? Okay. Jasmine, do you want to just have her step outside the podium if that is easier so we can see her? Thank you. Okay.
My name is Jasmine Gonzalez. I'm a student at Hawthorne. I'm very sad about the possibility of Hawthorne being closed. I want to ask you to please keep it open. I love my teachers and the dual language program. I love my friends there too. I want to keep learning both languages and keep my school open. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you both. Our last speaker this evening is Melissa Godina. Melissa?
Good evening. Thank you guys again for your time tonight. I'm Melissa Godina. My daughter is a 2nd grader at Waukesha Lowell. Her name's Anaya. And Anaya has been attending Lowell for the past 5 years. She started at Lowell when she was only 3 years old through the DHH program, which is an educational program that provides specialized support and instruction for students specifically with hearing loss from birth all the way through age 22. When Anaya was born, she was born with a condition called microtia, which is a rare birth defect that causes the external ear to be small or malformed, which also will affect her hearing. I had no education or knowledge as a first-time mom on how to handle this or what to do. You can only imagine my nerves and how scared I was for her future. Sorry. It wasn't until I was referred by Birth to 3 to enroll Anaya to a school that was actually in my district that specializes and helps children who are deaf or hard of hearing. Without the DHH program, the teachers at Lowell, and the teachers' aides at Lowell, I honestly would not know where my daughter would be today. When Anaya started out at Lowell, she was not saying a single word at age 3. She did not know any words to say. She was upset all the time. She didn't know how to express herself. But Lowell and that DHH program helped her speech tremendously. Within just 1 year, she was speaking nonstop and could give you a summary about what she did that day and what she did yesterday, and she will tell you what she wants to do for the rest of her evening. We're talking about a child who did not talk, just a single word. So I was blown away by how much of a difference I saw in my little girl. She is so accepting of her hearing condition and is so knowledgeable of it as well. That DHH program has helped me and my family so much. Not only am I trying to save Lowell and that deaf hard of hearing program, but I'm also here to try and advocate for the children and the families with hearing loss in the future that have to endure that and be scared and not know what to do next. Because without Lowell and that program, that has helped my family and my daughter
30
thrive so
seconds.
much. So please try to consider to keep Lowell open for those reasons. We are a team, and I know that we will all be in this together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I want to thank all of our speakers tonight for everyone adhering to the time limits, which I know is not easy, and being respectful of one another, so thank you. We will be moving into some other general business before we get to our special topics tonight. So we will begin with minute approval. We have 2 sets of minutes that I'd be seeking approval for, both from August 13th, one for the regular board meeting and one from the executive session. Mr. Wad?
I would move to approve the regular meeting board minutes from August 13th, 2025, along with the executive board minutes from the same night.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Koenig. Any questions, modifications? All right, Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Betty Koenig,
Aye.
Natalie Gren,
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
David Wad.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. We'll move right into the WEF report. Mrs. Koenig?
Thank you, Madam President. The Waukesha Education Foundation Board of Directors met last on September 4th. Last month, we reported that the WEF was invited to be a featured guest on a radio show called Milwaukee's Philanthropic Community, which airs on WISN 1130 on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. And this is also streamed on many platforms as a podcast. While our date was set for taping, a family emergency with our contact at Ellenbecker Investments has delayed the taping, and we will now be taping our segment in mid-September. So stay tuned for that. We had a great day at the Waukesha Farmers Market on August 23rd. We brought in a 13-year-old balloon creation extraordinaire. We had lines around our booth and had a great time bringing smiles to more than 125 kids and were able to talk with their parents about the WEF. Finally, we've provided 2 marketing pieces for you this evening at your seats. First, our 2023 annual report, and second, a new recruiting guide. We have several WEF board members who will be completing their terms at the end of 2025, and we're looking for new board members to join us. We always look for committee members. If you know anyone who might be interested, please contact Lynette. Madam President, this concludes my WEF report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Koenig. Any questions or follow-up for Mrs. Koenig? All right, thank you. All right, we are going to move first into an update on optimizing our future long-range planning by Dr. Siebert, and then we'll move on from there. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Dr. Piasek. We will do our monthly Optimizing Our Future update, and we'll start walking through it together. This is a slide you've seen many times, but just as a reminder for everyone, this is a long-range budget planning process that we're using to guide our future decision-making. We've based it in these 4 tenets that it always has been and always will be our primary objective to provide our families and students with high-quality education access, that we're proud of our district teachers and support staff. We have an excellent focus on student achievement, and you've helped us in that tremendously by helping us align our curriculum resources across the district. We want to continue to look to provide great educational opportunities for the future, and it's our administrative belief that to provide the same level of service and opportunity year over year, we're going to need to look at how we best deploy the resources we have available, and in our opinion, that means right-sizing the school district of Waukesha as our enrollment declines due to the decline primarily in the birth rate. I wanted to just go back to our original target. We began talking about this in March, and our original target with our Optimizing the Future process was to reduce capacity by 10 to 15% with a focus on the K-8 footprint. And we've certainly had a lot of conversation over the summer. We'll cover some of that as we go through, starting this spring actually with Phase 1, which we had 9 sessions, 6 for our staff, 3 for our community at night, where we were really sharing the background of this work, why we thought this work is important, and how our enrollment continues to decline, as you saw in Mr. Clark's presentation during the budget hearing. Also, how we were going to use the entire calendar year of 2025 to take a look at this big work. We're currently in Phase 2, which is the gathering input phase, and so over the summer we hosted 26 different sessions for parents, community members, and staff members to come and give us feedback on 4 proposals that we had put together administratively. We'll talk about those here in just a minute. We also had a survey opportunity and an online feedback portal. And that all builds up to Phase 3, which is presenting a recommendation to you as a board sometime in the October to December timeframe. And we continue to work toward figuring out what of those options is the most palatable to not only the most amount of people, but also to you as a Board of Education. So we wanted to spend a little time on the board workshop. Believe it or not, that was just a week ago today. We met on September 3rd, the second day of school. And we began by talking about the mission of the School District of Waukesha. That's on the top of the page there, helping our kids be community, college, and career ready. And then Dr. Piasek helped us get off to a nice start with some comments she had made at the August board meeting, where we're trying to look to create a plan that can optimize the academics and student services that we are known for, things such as dual language and STEM. We're trying to reduce our service locations so we can maximize those opportunities and deploy the resources more effectively that we have. And also looking at a plan that creates enough operating runway so we don't keep coming back for changes every few years. And we have heard that from our stakeholders, that this is something that they don't want to see us continue to do year after year. We had 6 goals for the workshop that we live streamed for the first time in district history. We began by looking at maps of the current district footprint with the school boundaries by level. We reviewed the structure and format of the gathering input phase. Ms. Getterman did that for us. We also looked at the ranking survey data, and she summarized the results of that. She shared who provided the input in terms of the strengths, wonderings, and opportunities for enhancements, and then she summarized the themes focusing on the strengths. And then we talked with you about how we used those themes to create options E and F, which we presented at the workshop, and we'll talk more about those tonight. And then I thought we had a great time of gathering feedback and input from you as board members and ultimate decision makers, and we spent about 3.5 hours together, and I thought we were very grateful for that time and thought it was time well spent. We also have a picture of the district website because all of those things that I just talked about are on the website. So the presentation that we used at the workshop is on the website, and all of that input in terms of that summarized input from the online portal, from our in-person sessions via the Post-its, and then combination input is all available for people to take a look at on the website as well. And there are a tremendous amount of resources on the website. So before we get into talking about the options, I wanted to talk about a couple of things that we have held close on all of the options that we've talked about. And so in all of the options that we're talking about, we are basing our class size on the capacity study numbers of 22 students per class in grades pre-K through second, and 25 kids per class in grades 3 through 12. So I know there is a thought in the community that perhaps we are going to have these very large class sizes, and that is not the goal. We have the capacity, even with reducing buildings, to be able to serve students based on those capacity study numbers, and that is our target. And then secondly, in any of the options that we're talking about, we believe that new school boundaries and a redistricting process will be not only necessary but important for us to complete. The rationale behind that is we've had multiple school closures over the years, but never a comprehensive review of our boundaries. And so we do believe we have some inefficiencies. We have some schools that certainly could accommodate more students, and we have some schools that can't. And so we think a redistricting and new boundary process is going to be critically important to whatever path that we choose going forward. So I thought we'd spend a little time reviewing the options, and we'll just do this high level because these first four are very familiar to all of you as board members. But you remember that we started with these four that we gathered input on over the summer. Option A was the K-8 STEM at Summit View. That one would garner a total seat reduction of 1,641 seats, which was a 12% reduction in overall capacity. And then with each of the options, you'll remember we had the infographic that shows the enrollment by level in each of these plans. So in this particular one, we'd have a 95% capacity, and we'd fill 95% of our capacity at the elementary level, 70% at the middle, 69% at the high school level, and with Summit View being the K-8 STEM, we'd be at 95% of the cap. Option B was a K-8 STEM at Les Paul option. That one would garner 2,111 seats, or a 16% reduction. And as you'll remember, that one did a 92% capacity completion at the elementary schools. We were down to 2 middle schools in this particular plan, so we were at 101% of the cap. We remained at 69% of the cap at the high school level, and then created a little more space for growth at Les Paul by being at 70% of the cap for the K-8 STEM. Option C was a grade reconfiguration where we would move 5th grade up to the middle school. That one has the exact same seat reduction in terms of Plan B, which is 2,111 seats, or 16%. And that one also does a fairly good job at the elementary level, being 89% of the cap. We end up at 94% of the cap at the middle school, still 69% of the cap at the high school, and with this K-8 STEM being back at Summit View, we would be topping out at right around 95% with not a tremendous amount of room for growth. And then we also had option D, which was a more significant grade reconfiguration option. Grades 4K through 3 elementary schools, grades 4 through 6 intermediate schools at Butler and Horning, and then 7-12 junior high school structures at North, South, and West. That one had a larger seat reduction of 3,027 seats, or a 22% overall reduction. And so that one has a lower elementary capacity at 79%, a higher 102% cap with the intermediate schools at Horning and Butler, and it also maximizes the high school at 96% capacity and gives STEM the ability to grow in a K-8 version at Les Paul. So when we went through those four options, you can see we, in every plan, have something that isn't quite get there, right? And we noticed that, obviously, and I don't know that we'll ever find an exactly perfect plan, but I know we're going to continue to try and continue to work toward that. So that's where we came up with new options, E and F, that we shared with you at the workshop. And those were really from the vast amount of input and feedback that we received. We had close to 2,900 Post-it notes. We had hundreds of people who joined us in those in-person sessions. We met with a number of people during that process, continue to meet with people who have plans, who have ideas, who have questions. And all of that experience in being in those sessions, listening to people, meeting with people, and reading a tremendous amount of emails and correspondences from all of our stakeholders have really helped us administratively and as a cabinet to think differently about what we might be able to do, and that led to the creation of options E and F. So in E, we presented that last week. That was where we talked about, we called this plan 3 dual elementary sites. And we have our consistent theme of selling Saratoga or the Saratoga complex, which includes the service building and Harvey Phillip, the White Rock building, which is current home to Waukesha East and the Waukesha Transition Academy, and Pleasant Hill, which was part of the district up until 2010 and is now leased to the Richardson School. We have the K-8 STEM school at Les Paul. In option E, we repurpose and/or sell Hawthorne, Lowell, and Whittier. We would have 2 middle schools at Butler and Horning in this plan. We would have 3 dual elementary language sites at Banting, Bethesda, and Higher for geographic spread and balance. And in these plans, we said that East and WTA location could be determined. We certainly could use the buildings that we would repurpose or sell for East, and we left that to be determined at this point. These plans had a reduction, this plan particularly had a reduction of 2,546 seats, which equates to an 18% reduction, and would save just a little over $3.6 million. So when you look at the enrollments and the capacities in option E, we would hit 90% of the enrollment cap at the elementary level with the schools that are remaining. With the 2 middle school concept, we are at 101% of the cap, again, based on the 24-25 enrollment. All of these numbers are that, and so we lose about 2% per year, as Mr. Clark talked about in the budget presentation. And our high school capacity would be at 73%, ticks up from the 69% because Whittier as East and WTA comes out of that plan, and that's why the number looks slightly higher. And then we have Les Paul at the 70% cap in K-8 STEM. We also talked about an option F, which we called K-6 elementary sites, and that one had the same selling of those 3 that we've talked about in almost every plan. The K-8 STEM school at Les Paul, and we showed some maps at the workshop of where the STEM kids live, and a lot of them live in the center of the city, so we thought that continued to make sense. In this one, we're repurposing or selling Hawthorne or Whittier. This one we would have 2 7-8 middle schools at Butler and Horning because the 6th graders moved back down. The 3 elementary dual language sites stay as same as E at Banting, Bethesda, and Higher. And again, East and WTA could be relocated to one of those particular buildings that we have or a different solution. And so we have a total seat reduction of 1,976 seats or a 15% reduction, garnering just under $2.9 million in savings. So in that one, we are at 93% capacity at the elementary school. We'd be with 7-8. That obviously doesn't fill the middle schools nearly to what they could be. That would be at 71%. And again, 73% at the high school level. And we would be continuing that 70% enrollment with K-8 STEM at Les Paul based on the 24-25 numbers. So we walked through those at the workshop. And then we also walk through a potential timeline that we could consider, which would be implementing something in 26-27, so that actually should be over, I apologize for that. Could be a phased implementation depending on the plan with 26-27, 27-28. Then coming back, reevaluating in 20-30-31, that would be the summer, actually the spring of 30-31, running a consistent process like we did this time, and implementing any changes in 2032-33. So that we talked about that. We talked about how a student in 4K this year would be into middle school by the time that would happen, and a sixth grader would graduate by the time that would happen, and just shared that as a way that we could think about, if we wanted to just think about K-8, we could think about that kind of a implementation project and phase, and then have all of our 7-12 and high school opportunities and options on the table again in 2031. We also talked about our on-site enrollment projection, and as Mr. Clark said, that's been the whole focus of optimizing our future. We're talking about the number of students we have in our brick and mortar facilities. So last year and the year that we're using for all of our calculations was 9,675. And then when we show that consistent 2% decline per year, we show where we go over that period of time, all the way out to 2033, 34. And if you remember a couple board meetings back, I showed a slide that would show that we would consistently decline by about 2%. So by 2035 would be about the size of Elmbrook, which we would be if we did nothing, statistically very different in terms of the amount of facilities that we have within a school district, and also with cutting roughly $3 million a year, probably about $15 million less in resources in 5 years and $30 million less in 10. So we certainly do need, in our opinion, to take some action. And then we also showed what the high school enrollment looks like and how that will continue to decline as well. And then I had a slide here where I just showed all of the different cost savings, because we didn't talk about cost savings as much maybe in option A, B, C, or D, but you can see the numbers there, and it all really coincides with the number of schools that close and the amount of seats that are reduced. And so you can see option A starts in the $2 million range, and we end up with option D just under 4.7 million, with B and C being in the just 2.8 million almost and 3.12 million. And then we just talked about the cost savings with E and with F. So we also then, at the workshop, had great discussion, and you requested an option G. So as I said earlier, we really appreciated the time we spent with you. We heard very clearly that you wanted to see something that would be a K-6, 7-12 model. And so we have designed an option G for your consideration that would utilize that grade configuration, and we can display that for you now. So an option G could look like this. We could still sell Saratoga, the Saratoga Complex, White Rock, and Pleasant Hill. We could still have our K-8 STEM school at Les Paul. And then in terms of K-6 sites, we'd be talking Banting, Bethesda, Hadfield, Higher, Hillcrest, Lowell, Meadowbrook, Prairie, Roseglen, and Summit View. We could still have our 3 dual elementary sites at Banting, Bethesda, and Higher for the geographic spread. We have multiple options for East and WTA to move into. Because this model is K-6 and 7-12, it means we don't have middle school in the school district of Waukesha. So by using Les Paul for the K-8 STEM, you certainly could use Butler or Horning too, if that was preferable. But you would, essentially, we would be looking to close, sell, or repurpose 2 middle schools, and here we said Butler and Horning, because again, Les Paul, we think with the 2 buildings and where the STEM students live makes sense. So we would close, repurpose, or sell those 2 middle schools. Our 7-12 junior high, high school sites would be north, south, and west. And our thought is that south has the most capacity issues currently, so we could use Whittier as an overflow site for south if needed, and we could think about that. This plan would reduce 3,826 seats. It would be a 28% reduction, and the big reduction is because we're getting 1,850 seats from Butler and Horning with 925 capacity each. And you would have a total estimated cost savings of 5.1, almost $5.2 million. So let's show you the infographic and what that would look like. All right, so you see we would be, with those elementary schools, we would be at 92% capacity in a K-6 plan. We would need to redistrict, as I talked about. We don't have the capacity at every school currently to have the fifth graders stay and have their 4K or kindergarten come in. But through redistricting, we could make that work. The high school, or excuse me, the high school, junior high, high school capacity, what we did there is we took the total capacity of the three high schools, we took the 24-25 enrollment, and then we took how many seventh graders we had in 24-25 minus the STEM seventh graders, how many eighth graders we had in 24-25 minus the STEM kids to get our total enrollment, and you see we'd be at 102% utilization. So we would be, in a couple of years, like next year, we would be 100%, most likely, the year after 98%. So it would be maximizing, obviously, the three comprehensive high schools. We have Les Paul, again, at 70% for growth with the K-8 STEM program. And as you can see down below in the close, repurpose, or sell, we have multiple options to consider for East and WTA to have their own building if that was what we wish to do. So that is what it would look like with Butler and Horning. I also just wanted to show you if we flexed in Les Paul and put K-8 STEM, for example, at one of the other middle schools, Butler or Horning, then you'd lose 100 seats of reduction because Les Paul's capacity is just 100 less than the other two. So you'd be at a total reduction of 3726, which still equates to a 28% overall reduction in seats. What we also wanted to show you is if you wanted to think about it differently, one thing that we could consider is Butler and Horning are very nice buildings. They could accommodate two K-6 elementary sites within each of them. And we could look at it that way. So you could geographically put two elementaries in Butler and you could put two elementaries in Horning. That would maximize use of buildings that we've significantly invested in. But on the other hand, it would not maintain the number of neighborhood schools because obviously 4 of the ones in the box on the top would come out of that mix. But I did think at least we should show you that that is something we could do, and it's something we could think about if you were interested in considering that for a Plan G. So we can certainly answer as a cabinet as many questions as you like. I just wanted to say very much, like, we believe this has been a very strong process to date. We think it's a model for other districts. We know we're going to find a viable path forward, and I think we're getting closer and closer through our collaboration and through our listening and through our ongoing discussions. And we just appreciate your willingness to engage in this process with us, right? We think it's the right work, and we appreciate that you do too. And we know that we will find that path forward together, and we appreciate that. So we can, those are the slides I have, Dr. Piasek, but we can certainly go back to any of the slides, answer any questions that the board may have before we move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Siebert. I do want to thank you and your team for being so responsive, not only to the community's feedback and input and requests, but also to the boards. It's a lot of opinions and a lot of emotions, and you all have been very professional and very objective in how you've gone about this. I know that, we kind of want to move from the modeling of things to really understanding the services and how things are going to look. And there's a lot of questions we haven't been able to answer because we can't build out every one of these plans into something that's going to be comprehensive. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But what you've presented here has given us a lot of options. And as we think through how these are going to work, I think, we still have opportunities to think about what some of those gaps are and some of those unanswered questions. I think there were a lot of good things raised by the community tonight as well. So I'm guessing that board members have some questions. And, as always, we'll kind of go around. I would just ask everyone to be respectful of how much time you're utilizing and making sure that, we're asking questions of the administration initially. And then if you have thoughts about where we go from here. Okay, so we'll start with Mr. Wadd.
Yeah, Thank you, Dr. Siebert, for that recap and coming forward with the options around G. I have a question related to some of the comments we heard from some of our Lowell families tonight, particularly those who had concerns around the specialized program for kids with hearing loss and hearing impairment. If we were to pursue a closure of Lowell, does that necessarily mean an interruption to those services, or could those be relocated to another location? Do they take up more space at Lowell than that we would have to account for in some of the design plans? So anything you can address around that would be helpful, I think.
Mr. Pat will be able to do that for us. Mr. Watt.
So the deaf and hard of hearing program is district-wide. Lowell has, it's really the people and the services, so those services and those individuals can be moved anywhere to provide services. There's nothing specific about Lowell's construction or anything that we can't replicate anywhere else. We have multiple DHH students at multiple schools in our district that get services and continue to thrive and do well.
Mrs. Koenig.
That was actually my exact question, Mr. Watt. It's amazing you said it, what I was going to ask too. So just to clarify, I did hear a lot about the concern with the DHH program. That program will not be discontinued, and whatever services the students would have been receiving at Lowell, they would receive at another elementary school that we would obviously set up, move things if needed, but it wouldn't just be an end to the services, is what I hear you say, correct?
Correct. Lowell Elementary years ago was a hub for DHH students countywide. Individuals came to Lowell to receive services for specific programming. Technology has really changed the DHH community and allowed the services really to be district-wide. There's nothing we can't replicate now at any building. So depending on the student's IEP, all services can be done at any school building in our district.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Watt.
Yeah, just to kind of follow up on that. So the personnel that help to administer the programs at Lowell, are they full-time at Lowell? Do they travel around the district to help with those programs elsewhere? I'm trying to, I guess, determine, is there some potential efficiencies we get with consolidation if those are resources that are shared across the district?
Yes, most of our deaf and hard of hearing teachers are itinerant, so they move between multiple buildings to deliver those services.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. So a couple of my concerns from the beginning have been around resources, and I know I've asked this of administration in conversations we've had, and the main question was, how do we look at all the resources that we have, all the things we do well, how changes within the structure of our district are going to affect those, and then how can we as board members kind of look at that, that basket of resources and understand how they will be better utilized everywhere they are, because they'll be more focused and concentrated in those areas. And I think part of the struggle that we're having and I'm having is we're not really at the point yet to understand that, because we haven't made decisions on closing things. And I think while that is an extremely important conversation to have, I don't know if, and while we're trying to talk about specific programs right now, when can we really start to understand how some of those resources will be reapplied? Because I know we have a lot of great staff. There's a lot of great services and programs. I think the most talked about, obviously, are STEM and dual language. But where in this process do we begin to, as board members and as the community, really understand how we will better utilize resources ultimately in this process, which is one of the main goals for the education of our students?
It's a great question, Mr. Zenobia. My thought is that in the next agenda item, if you are selecting options that appeal to you as a board more than others, that allows us to get into that, what we're terming full analysis portion, where then we're getting into all of that information. So what are the boundaries? What does the transportation look like? What do the services in a particular building look like? What does the staffing look like in the building? Trying to isolate all of that. To Dr. Piasek's earlier point, as we keep adding the options, it's hard to do that for every single one, but if we can narrow, then we can bring more detailed information in all of those fronts that I think will get to what exactly you're hoping for.
Thank you.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. Yeah, I think that understanding of how when we're consolidating schools, we're also consolidating services to be more streamlined, to be more right-sized. I mean, when we have, whether it's a DHH educator or special ed or second language, regardless of what service they're providing, when they're spread out between multiple buildings and they have to travel and spend a lot of time going between both, that time they're traveling is time they're not spending, working with students and providing those services. And when we can put those services into one building and have that person there full time, that's a lot more consistent care for the students who need those services. So I do think that's an important thing to keep in mind. I mentioned this at the board workshop, but I just want to make sure that it is repeated tonight. When we look at these new 3 plans, E, F, and G, I'm grateful for the feedback that we've gotten that has led to them. I'm grateful for all of your work to help put them together. I would like to see some certainty of where East and WTA fit into that, just because, as I mentioned last time when I spoke with the principal at East, our alternative school, and WTA, which is our transition academy for students who have disabilities ages 18 through 21. The main thing that she expressed to me was that putting those students, specifically the East students, back into a traditional high school setting would not be successful, would not work out well for them. These are buildings and environments that they've come from for the most part, that they were not successful in. They're at East because of that. And she really stressed the importance of them having, that school community, that community that they can just really own and take pride in, and not putting them into a situation where they weren't previously successful. So I would like to get a little bit more clarity, just so that we know that we're taking care of those students as well, because I think that we do alternative education extremely well in Waukesha, in my opinion. I think it's something that we should be very proud of. I think Sue and her team at East are fantastic, and it's something that can be a model for other districts in our area to look at. And I just want to make sure that we're also keeping them in our minds as we go through this process.
Absolutely, Mr. Brooks. So we have multiple buildings in all of these options, and as we get into like a G, we have several buildings that we can analyze and decide which one would be the best fit for them. And certainly it's something we can address, and we have plenty of options, with the exception of we may want to not use Whittier in a 712 model, because we probably would want that for South, is our thought. But as we get into the full analysis, we can describe that better if that's something that the board finds appealing. But there will be buildings for them.
Perfect. And I know that's something that you all were taking care of. I just want to reiterate, I think, David said it best, keep doing, we don't want to disrupt what we do best. And I do think that on top of all the other great programs that we have in Waukesha, I think East is something that we do really well and want to continue to set them up for success.
Mrs. Boyd?
One of our concerns has been to minimize the number of disruptions in students' lives. And I couldn't help but feel very disappointed that Hawthorne is on the list again after many families were absorbed from Blair, when Blair closed not that long ago. And there are a lot of those families that are, one of the messages received this week, economically disadvantaged, 54% Hispanic, most walk to school, and don't have reliable transportation to go someplace else for dual language, et cetera. I feel really badly, my heart just goes out to them. to be in a situation that they seem like they're, being hit again, when they did a great job of absorbing Blair just 4 years ago. It's not that long ago that they were in the same situation, and now we're, asking them to be impacted again. And I just was wondering if you've given that some consideration.
Certainly, Mrs. Voigt. So as we have put together different options, the one thing that doesn't change is that in order to get some reduction, particularly on this side of town, it started with Blair, but now we still have, in our opinion, too many elementary schools on this particular side of town. We feel like we have to remove at least one from that section to be more efficient. We have the space and ability to absorb the students. And the other thing I would say is that Hawthorne is similar in terms of its footprint to what Randall was, where it has multiple levels, and about 5, I would say. And so the elevator gets to some of the levels, the lift gets to some of the levels, but nothing fully utilizes, gets all kids to all levels. So that was the thinking when there was additions made at Hawthorne. They weren't leveled out, so there are different flooring and different steps and so forth, levels. So that's been our thinking behind it. So we understand that they moved from Blair in 2019. We understand that there's going to be emotions and challenges with closing any school. So we understand all those pieces, certainly.
Mrs. Voigt can continue, and then we'll go to Mr. Watt, unless you are responding.
Sort of, but.
Okay.
But Mrs. Voigt.
Okay.
By the same token, I feel very badly for the Whittier families that just recently were moved over from Randall, and now 2 years later asked to move again. That's in terms of disruption. That's an extremely heavy burden for them to be, placed in that situation a second time so quickly. The teachers have just gotten settled in a new place 2 years later, and now it's time to look at relocating again. I think we need to be sensitive to those sorts of circumstances, and these plans, are not, showing me that is a concern that we have.
Sure. No, I understand what you're saying, and they did just move recently. That was a situation by which we were able to complete a real estate transaction with Carroll that worked out very well for both parties, Randall and Lindholm. We had 2 vacant buildings at the time in Whittier and Blair, and so we made that determination at that time that we would not have any vacant buildings within the community. We thought that was a smart move. We're now at a point where we are trying to look at right-sizing again and for a longer period of time, and ultimately think that a K-8 STEM model has some significant benefits to the students, the families, as well as the teachers being able to collaborate together in one space.
Mr. Watt?
Yeah, I mean, my heart goes out to any family who is impacted by the decisions we're about to make, regardless of whether it's the first time or the third time, whatever the case might be. But I think there's lessons to learn from what happened with Blair and what happened with Whittier for our present day situation and for those calling for us to just close a little bit at a time. In 18? Was that when Blair closed? I think that's correct. We were in the midst of an 8-year trend, maybe a year or more longer, of 2% roughly enrollment declines. No one thought, gee, maybe we should take a longer lens at this. Are these trends going to continue? What will it look like? I could hear the arguments then, though, that we're hearing today had someone propose, let's take a look at a broader vision that tries to lay a framework for the future. But wait, why don't we wait to see what happens? Maybe this data will reverse, maybe it will change. So we closed Blair. 4 years later, we were back and we closed Whittier to move students to Hadfield. And here we are, 3 years later, 2 years later, 3 years later, and we're talking about yet another school. And the kids were going to be impacted are the kid, many, not all, but many of the kids that are going to be impacted by the decisions we make may very well have been impacted by those decisions. But the problem is not that we have to make that decision and impact them again. It's that there wasn't more forward planning taking place in either 2018 or 2022. And this is why I keep saying we don't want to keep coming back to this table every 2 or 3 years, because our plan is we hope that the trends reverse. The trends are clear. And I am confident from the plans that we've looked at that should we see some remarkable change that occurs within the next 5 to 10 years in the birth rate, and we start seeing that we need more seats, that we will remain with enough capacity to do so going forward. But I think this speaks exactly to why we need to be bold now and not continue to come back, because we will keep impacting families every 2 to 3 years if we don't try to make a plan that stabilizes what this district footprint looks like for the next 10 years.
Mrs. Koenig?
Thank you. I just wanted to mention something. Most of you know that I am bilingual. I speak Spanish. Many of you probably don't know that. I know Melissa's nodding because I had her as a student. Hi, sweetie. I'm fluent in Spanish, so the dual language program is near and dear to my heart. And I taught at White Rock and watched that transition. I went to Hawthorne, taught there 6 years, well before it was ever a dual language school. Hawthorne never used to be a dual language school. That was something that happened when Blair closed. My point in just saying that is where the program goes, it'll just get reestablished somewhere else. So those of you that are connected to a school building, and I want you to understand that if the program continues somewhere else, it's going to continue. So don't get caught up in the building. The teachers are great. They're going to go somewhere else, within the district. The program's going to shift, just like the DHH program's going to go somewhere else. The teachers are going to be there. We're going to serve our kids, fantastically. But I'm looking at this map. And this is the reason sometimes people don't really understand, well, why are we targeting the schools that are more in the inner city, or maybe what's considered the maybe not as affluent areas? When you look at the map, there are 6 schools in a 2-mile radius. I mean, they're pretty tight. Whittier closed, Randall closed. There's still 4 more that are very tight. When you start looking at what buildings to close, I think this is why these buildings are coming up as conversation, starters. Like, it's because of the location. It has nothing to do with the neighborhoods. It has nothing to do with any of that. You just have to look at, we've got a lot of schools in an area where we don't have a lot of kids. So that's why these schools are coming into, conversation for closings, okay? I don't know if maybe the community doesn't understand that by going from 4 dual language sites to 3. Well, 2 in my mind was also, you all know I did not agree with that. We needed one on the west side, so I was definitely, a proponent to maintain Bethesda as a dual language school because of that. You can't have them all, located on one end of the city, and you've got a thriving program here and then close it. So there's no secret that I was concerned with that. But I don't know if the community really understands why we're looking at going from 4 sites to 3. Maybe that wasn't really clearly laid out. I think it represents in a lot of people's minds that we're diminishing the program. But actually, from what I've heard in conversations, I've heard talk that the dual language numbers have gone down for whatever reason. Could they be robustly recharged? Absolutely. But they have gone down, and therefore, like in the district, if somebody could speak to that, what does that look like when it comes to services? In other words, what are the benefits of reducing from 4 to 3? Maybe that needs to be a little bit more laid out so people understand why that's even an issue and why we can't keep 4 or why we're not looking at 4. Does that make sense?
So the enrollment numbers are on the website. So when you look at the enrollment in the 4 schools, you'll notice with the number of sections, there is just plenty of room within 3, definitely within 3 sites. If you look
possibly in 2. So just by being able to combine that, stabilize the section numbers, it's hard when you are going, and when you're in a school that has 2 sections of dual language, but maybe you only have 36 students, so you're splitting that in 2. If students start moving as they grow or get older or decide to leave the program, now you're debating, do I go down to 1 section, which is a larger section? So by reducing to 3 sites or potentially 2, but looking at 3 right now, you're able to stabilize those numbers a little bit. So that would be one advantage.
Right, and I completely understand that, maybe because I've seen it from the inside, I know what you're saying, but maybe that is something that people aren't really aware of how internally, how that looks and how difficult it is to be able to staff 4 dual language sites, you know, with those considerations in mind, and all the staffing issues and resource allocations that get stretched. And I think I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, you know, time, information provided on that perspective, because I think it does make sense when you look at initially why we were looking to downsize. You know, am I a proponent that I think every school should have a dual language program? That'd be great, but I also understand resource-wise, finding staff, you know, qualified staff, you know, the resources that would have to go into that, I know is, you know, extraordinary. So I just wanted to speak to that, of why we're looking at certain schools and, you know, not like a target type of a thing, but there is a logistical reason. And, you know, it is something that we're going to have to consider as we look at the dwindling population and the fact that we have 4 schools in such a tight radius.
Mrs. Boyd?
Related to that would be the transportation then. You know, how can the students that are in the Hawthorne area get over to Bethesda or get over to Banting? You know, will the district be providing transportation for them to make that as easy as possible, you know, to be able to work with that concept?
So to clarify for our students who are in a dual language program, dual language for our native Spanish speakers is a service that we must provide. And so for students who are in the program, if they're outside the 2-mile radius and have to go to a different dual language school, they will be bused, depending on being outside of that 2-mile radius. That is the threshold for all of our schools. So any student within 2 miles walking distance can walk, and anyone outside of 2 miles would receive a bus. So whatever happens, that would continue to remain that way for our students, and dual language specifically provides that as well. Outside that 2-mile radius, anyone would be bused to whatever school offers the programming for those students.
Mrs. Gren?
Thank you, Mr. Pat. I really appreciate that information, and Mrs. Canning, thanks for bringing that up, because that is something that is obviously dear to me as well. I love our dual language program. I think it's a great service that we offer here in the school district. I think that information right now is great to share with the community, because I think that was a lack there for why are we doing this? Why are we focused on these schools? And then, of course, transportation we heard a lot about tonight. And just the sheer panic of, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to send my children to a dual language program. It's really important to know that those are not going away. You will have transportation, and we're going to seriously look at everything that is built around those services to make sure that everything is clear and communicated, and hopefully we can do a little bit better of a job, but I don't know, keep bringing it forth more before the panic strikes. So thank you very much, appreciate it.
Mrs. Boyd?
I think one of the things that Mr. Wad spoke to is the fact that we need a long-range plan. You know, this concept feels, I'm sure, to the Hawthorne families, to the Lowell families, like it just happened last week, and now they're feeling the brunt of truly feeling like they're going to be cut and not have a future home. And I think one of the things we heard over and over again is the value of the neighborhood schools, and how much, obviously, the Pezifis families felt about that, the Summit View families felt about that, the notion of having a neighborhood school you can walk to. There's a lot of value to that, a lot of community in that type of relationship. I think one of the things we definitely need to do is to do a long-range plan. If we want to try to, make these changes, not have the families feel like they're being blindsided. Have it be something that's, not going to happen all of a sudden, decided in December and it's impacting them last fall. I know how that felt when they decided to close Whittier, with the 6-week discussion process. And, my heart goes out to these families because they're feeling the same kinds of things that we did, as a community, as the Whittier, process was happening. So I guess I'm a huge advocate for doing what we can do now realistically, and then set a long-range plan that everybody can understand this is what we need to do, and not just have it be sprung on them, with a very short notice.
Mrs. Kozlowski?
I want to kind of get back to the concept and address Mrs. Voigt's comments. This is a long-term strategic plan. The entire goal of this over an 18-month, and in fact, we've been talking about this in the FNF committees ad nauseum for the last 4 years. So this is an identified approach. This is a concept that is hard and it's an emotional, but these decisions and leadership requires us to be making hard decisions to lead this district forward. I mentioned this in the workshop. That was a long workshop that offered us a ton of discussion and a lot of these points brought up. But our number one obligation here is to provide an excellent education, which we have laid the foundation over the last several years with consistent and solid curriculum. We've enabled ourselves to be able to focus on the services that we can wrap around our students to provide the best academic resources and all student services. And the last piece that we have to focus in is on our infrastructure footprint. And these are the 3 major categories of our budget. It's staffing, curriculum, and infrastructure. Failure to address this point, as tough as these decisions are, it has to be made because we can't continue to spend on underutilized buildings and avoid the fact that we can use those funds to direct them directly to our students and our staff. That's what we're doing. It has to be done. And the long-range plan, when we've been talking about doing this and focusing on the next 10 years, it is specific because we don't want to have a repeat of the Whittier and the Blair, and we are learning from lessons of the past, but I most certainly can't fix the lessons of the past. We are aiming forward, and we have to make decisions that are going to do all of these great things for our students and our staff. And I think that was the one key point that I said in the workshop. We've got to shift from a building to the service. Dr. Piasek saying is a day in the life of your student. What does that look like? Because at the end of the day, the building is not going to matter. And when I take a look at the plans that we have and to the administration team coming back with these that we asked again, we've moved fluently as a community from where we started in March to getting through how we laid this out and starting in June, and we've evolved as a board, as an administration, and as a community together, and I think that's been very fluent. And we've taken that feedback and we've built with plans and we've come back with things with the number one focus that the service that I'm providing to our staff and students is the number one priority that I have. And so, yes, we are going to have to close some buildings. And that is why we are here and we are going to have to make those choices. But at the end of the day, we are going to provide outstanding academics, we're going to provide great student services, and we're going to have staff that is not spread thin among multiple places throughout the district. And I'm very happy to see that forward focus, and to me, that is the long-term plan.
Mr. Zenobia?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to briefly thank both Mr. Watt and Mrs. Kozlowski just now of reminding us why we're trying to make such a hard decision. And it's going to be very complicated. It is very complicated, but why we're here. But my question for administration is the redistricting process. And any light you can shed on that, when that might begin in this process, how long it might take, as we begin to really kind of understand what that looks like.
Yeah, the software we have allows us to map out where every household is, every student is, so we can, and then break them down between who's an open enrollment kid, who's in our district, and do all those things. So really what I have in mind for the redistricting, once we narrow it down, because it's not something you do in an afternoon. I mean, it is a long, painstaking, you have to be thinking about what you, as you're working on elementary, you want to be thinking about what's the middle school boundaries are going to look like. Do you want a set number of schools to go to one middle school, or do you want it all kind of divided up the way it is now? And then on top of that, you have to think about what's high school's boundaries going to look like. And I think when you get into the high school, you get into questions like, are we going to, in this decision, are we going to, I'll just give an example, a junior or a senior at a high school who gets boundaried out of their high school, are we really going to move them to a new high school in their senior year? Those are the types of questions. I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't, but that's why this boundary process takes so long, because you have to think about all those scenarios. So I think, and Steve Schloman can speak to the specifics about the technology. I think we have the technology. It's really, and that's why we've been holding off on it, because we simply cannot boundary 8 options. First of all, we can't have people leaving here with 8 different schools they might go to, or their students might go to. That's not fair as well. But the time, we really, in my mind, need to narrow this down so we can get into that full set of planning and start talking through those options, because that's going to be a significant amount of work. It's certainly doable, but it also demonstrates why districts don't usually reboundary. We're not doing it every 3 years for efficiency, because it's a hard task. You can tell by the conversations we've been having the last several months. Hopefully I answered your question, but it's doable, but we need some time.
Mrs. Voigt.
I think another consideration that we have to keep in mind, I appreciated the sheet on the SDW site projects from 2017 to 2025. As we recognized our custodial and maintenance staff tonight, they've done an amazing job as they've invested their time and efforts in making our schools amazing. And as I look at the $91 million that we've invested, that's phenomenal. Especially in these times, to be having put that much of our taxpayer resources into designing amazing facilities for the kids for educational purposes. I'm very concerned about the concept of cutting the middle schools, knowing that we've invested about half of that at Les Paul and Horning and Butler. And to leave those buildings without an intended new purpose, I think is a disservice, to the taxpayers who have allowed us to invest that kind of money to make them great schools.
Mr. Watt?
So while I appreciate that it's difficult to potentially walk away from investments in buildings that we have made in recent years, I'll reiterate that there are lessons there for all of us to have learned. The decisions we made to improve those middle schools at a time when our enrollments were declining was irresponsible. That was the 2017 board, I believe, or 2016 board that made that decision. They sent out dishonest push-polling surveys and got the community to buy in on it. And now here we sit at a table with people saying, well, we can't close the middle schools because we invested so much money in it. Well, we shouldn't have invested that money in the first place. And the fact of the matter is, if we'd been more forward-thinking back then, like we're trying to be today, maybe we wouldn't have made that financial mistake. We wouldn't have a referendum we have to be paying off. We wouldn't have to be fighting to be debt-free. We could have instead focused on being smarter about the footprint of our district with the facts we were facing, which was enrollment was declining, and we wouldn't have had other schools that we would have invested in, quite frankly, had we reduced our footprint back then. It's the fallacy of sunk costs. You don't throw good money after bad. We made a horrible decision as a district and a community to pass those referendums on those middle schools and invest that money. and continuing to keep them open simply because we invested it doesn't mean we get any more value from it. All it does is continue to extend the bad decision into the future, which is why I am so open to considering the possibility of closing those schools if it makes sense from, the other measurements that we have to make related to these decisions, including is it the right academic model? What does it do from a perspective of capacity and vacancies going forward? But just saying because we invested money in it means we have to keep them open is, in my estimation, a silly argument.
Okay, thank you. Please, thank you. Mr. Brooks, did you have something? Or Mr. Zenobia? Okay, Mr. Zenobia?
Yes, thank you. So I see we have agendized for this evening the possibility of taking some action on selecting some of these plans. And before us, we have 7 plans. So clarification that I would like is, as we do this, there's a lot of information and options within each plan. And if we were to remove one, for instance, I wouldn't necessarily think that would mean that we're removing every possibility within those plans, correct? That we're just whittling what we have before us down, correct?
We can have a discussion about that. Yes, we're not yet at the point where we're looking at final proposals. And even when we get to final proposals, I think we always have that flexibility to consider what things might be missing or what things might look different. So I think the work that's been done with the community sessions and a lot of the questions along the way, we would want to revisit and say, okay, how is this stacking up against the concerns, the strengths, all the opportunities that we have? And I think that's been a strength in this process all along, is that we started with 4 proposals that the administration thought would give us a lot of food for thought. Obviously caused a stir in some cases, but it's forced us to have some really open and transparent dialogue with our community members and with one another. And so I would say until we get to the point of making that final decision, we have some flexibility. And I think there's been a lot of good conversation about, what does that mean for me if the building stays open, but my district boundaries change? And so that's a hard thing to process as well, right? If we only changed the boundaries, that would be a very difficult thing for people to work through. So this is a lot. And I think until we start to see what those maps are looking like, then I think we might have some other discussion about, well, remember that concept that we had in, Plan Q. We're not going to get that far, but, could we bring that back in?
Sure.
And I think, we want to keep the process moving forward. So my intent is not to push anybody into making a decision prematurely. But I think as we continue to listen and we continue to get the questions out on the table, that we want to fill in some of those gaps. And we will not have a perfect answer when we get to the end of this. We are going to have to use good judgment. We're going to have to rely on the data and the expertise that we can. But yeah, I think, long answer. My understanding, unless anybody feels differently, or if Dr. Siebert or your team has thought differently about this, but that we continue to carry some of those preferred ideas along with us if it's something we want to revisit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I appreciate all that. And I think, from my perspective, even from the board workshop was, we want to leave all options on the table. And by that, I mean all schools are in play for obvious reasons. But I think we can get ourselves and maybe are at the point where we're going to bog ourselves down with so much on our plate to really focus in on. And with that in mind, I would make a motion to remove at least a plan so we can get the discussion going.
So we have that as a separate.
We're not there yet.
We're not quite there yet.
Okay, I'm trying.
And when we get there, I'm going to propose
Okay.
a process that might help us refine some things. And then I think we'll always keep that door open to bring things back or put them back. But
Excellent.
You're ready.
I will wait.
Okay.
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 Thank you.
I just want to see if did you have something,
Yes.
Thomas?
So we've obviously been discussing this process for many months, been in the media fairly often for this. We've consistently identified the 3 facilities that we are fairly confident will sell or could be sold. Has the district been approached about any other, I guess, those 3 specifically, or any other facilities that may not? I mean, it's been a long process, obviously, just looking if anything has come up in this time.
Not since these conversations. I've certainly gotten no formal offers or anything like that. I can't say I've never had a call. I think maybe early on I did. But at that time, I think my response was, well, we're going to be going through this process. So, I don't want to dive into a conversation unless, getting back to long-range planning, right? And that, if you remember, this is what kind of started us. We had these offers. Every month, FNF was dealing with some offer, and eventually, administratively, we came to FNF and eventually the board, and said, we can't make decisions on potential sales unless we know where we're going. And that was the initial, I think, starting point, at least in my mind, of where we're going. But no, there's nothing out there looming for anyone or any location.
I appreciate that. I think there were some rumors in the community that some of these facilities had already been sold or in the works, so I appreciate that answer. Thank you.
I'm just going to, just to be fair, is there, Ms. Koenig?
I just wanted to formally thank the administration too for coming up with option G. That was organically generated, I think, during our discussion last week at the workshop. The more I think about that plan, the more I think it does pull in a lot of what the community has said was important to them. The idea of a neighborhood school for the, elementary level. And I understand what Mrs. Voigt is saying, having to close 2 middle schools that were completely renovated. I understand that point. However, I think about the 6 or 7 elementary schools that we're looking at closing, in order to keep other buildings open. Bottom line is, we have beautiful facilities. A lot of them have had major work done. We're going to have to close some schools. And I would like the least disruption for our students as possible. So if it means having them at an elementary until 6th grade and then bopping to one of the 3 high schools, and that's the biggest change they're going to experience, that's really not a bad thing sometimes. That does provide some of the stability that I think parents in neighborhoods are looking for. So even though I know it might feel like, oh my goodness, closing 2 elementary schools are so state of the art. However, we're going to have to close schools. So I'm always thinking about what's best for the community and what's best for the students. And I just appreciate the administration for coming up with that Plan G. They really took a lot of things people were saying and created another option. So thank you for doing that. I know that took time.
Thank you. Mrs. Voigt?
Have we considered the idea of doing an impact study, like having a company that comes in and does that type of thing? Since it's obviously not something that we really know all the inner workings of the impact that might be involved as we make these different extreme decisions.
Administratively, we have not. We felt like we know the district and we know our trends and we know our data, and we felt like we could, in working with this 18-month process, come to a resolution that makes sense for the long-term viability of the school district of Waukesha.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. Question for Dr. Siebert. When the COVID pandemic hit, did we do any sort of equity impact study on school closures then?
No, Mr. Brooks.
Did we look into any sort of study detailing the level of disruption that decision might cause to close schools during the COVID pandemic?
No, we did not.
So I find it interesting that the one person at this board who actually voted to shut kids out of schools did not ever once bring that up then, but is now deciding to take the time to discuss disruption and the impact of that, or the need for an impact study when we didn't even put that into consideration then. That being said,
We did not.
Hold on.
Kids out
And
of school.
Mr. Brooks, just some professional decorum would be appreciated, but continue.
I just find it very, very interesting that when we were looking at school closures back in the COVID-19 pandemic, removing kids from school, removing them from their learning environment, that there really wasn't the same concern that we're seeing now. Having said that, I do appreciate that we have taken a very different approach to this process that other districts haven't taken, right? We hear a lot about how it's important that maybe we should slow down, maybe we should do a phase-in approach. We started talking about this back in March, April. We've had a significant opportunity for public feedback both during phase 1 and phase 2, and I think that feedback has led to a really strong product that we saw with options E through G, right? Like, we don't necessarily come to all those details if we don't hear from parents and we don't get those community submitted options throughout the summer. And so I'm very, very grateful for their feedback. I think it's, I mentioned it at the board workshop, but I know, obviously we're not gonna be able to do a full phase 1, phase 2 listening session type thing for those new proposals that we just brought up. But I do hope that we're able to have some sort of opportunity for a little bit more in-depth, since they are new to the majority of the community.
Mrs. Voigt, did you want to respond? I want to stay on topic also. Anything that you want to say?
I guess I disagree with your statement, and I won't get into an argument about that because that's not germane to what we're talking about right now. But I think one of the things we definitely heard from the community is there are a lot of other things we can look at doing with our schools. And I think that we would be doing a disservice to not invite the people that were giving those suggestions a chance to talk about, say, the 4K opportunities, and trying to expand those beginning offerings available in more places to be able to get students into the pipeline sooner, et cetera. I think the full day, half day, wraparound care, all those sorts of things that they were talking about as considerations that could be in several of the community schools that could help us in the long run. And I think there are a lot of take this opportunity to look at what else we can put into schools, like the program that Mr. Pat's looking at trying to design, offering other programs within the schools that are community partnership types of things for recreation, for mental health, et cetera. I think we want to take advantage of this time to be able to do that kind of long range looking at really making this a chance to make our schools even better and offer more things and they'll attract more families to come here because of the unique nature of what we can do as a total package for kids. Daycare was another thing that came up, offering daycare potentially in some of our facilities to be able to help families out in that context. Rather than having empty buildings. I just don't want to see vacant buildings sitting around. And, if we're making closures, I think we need to make sure we have a plan to use them, either sell them or have a repurpose. That's not going to just be a vacant building sitting around.
So, I'm going to comment and then you can. So, I mean, the reason that we're here is that our resources are spread pretty thin throughout the district, right? We're trying to cover a lot of geographical spaces as our enrollment is declining because birth rate and enrollment is declining. Earlier tonight, we had a public hearing for our preliminary budget for the school year that we've already started. And we talked about the fact that our levy is going to go up, projected 3.7%, to serve projected 2% fewer students. So that's not sustainable, right? We continue to serve fewer students. We continue to have an increase in the local tax levy. And it also, for me, doesn't in any way offer a green light or even a yellow light to go to our taxpayers and ask them for more money to sustain underutilized buildings and capacity. So this consolidation piece is extremely important because, to me, it's more unfair to leave all the buildings open and have them depleted of services than it is to consolidate and ask for some support to make these changes, and then to be able to surround our students with all the depth of services that we can offer them. So I think in terms of the additional services that we might be able to offer, I think we have to first focus on fulfilling our core mission. And then if we have the opportunity to serve those students we're responsible for serving in new and different ways, and that can bring the revenue in to support those programs, it doesn't feel like capacity is going to be our problem. It feels like it continues to be, how do we operate more efficiently? And that is going to require having a smaller footprint, which I know is difficult, but I think there are a lot of opportunities to be innovative on the services side, but that can't be done at the cost of not providing the best possible, dollar, or the most possible resources per student to fulfill the core mission. And I think we have to keep focused on that. Mr. Wad, did you have something?
You made the points I was going to make.
I have another point that I don't think it came up tonight either. And that is that on the financial side, when we make these changes and we're talking about the savings that we will have, these are not revenue savings. These are not margins that allow us to operate, at greater capacity. These are things that are allowing us to continue to have a reduced revenue limit because we're serving fewer students. And so even though the per pupil may continue to increase until the end of time, we still are going to continue to serve fewer students. And so in principle, the dollars that we are saving are allowing us to contract along with the budgetary resources that will contract with the enrollment that we're facing. So, and I think Mr. Wad made an excellent point earlier that, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, it was close this school, move these kids here, do this, do that, because we didn't believe that these trends were coming. And I think we have more technology and predictive modeling and things at our fingertips than we've ever had before. Can't say for sure what the world is going to look like 20 years from now, but I know what it's going to look like 12 years from now in terms of what we're trying to do, serve students in the district. So with the capacity that we have built in, I think it's very likely that we'll be okay for some period of time. Anybody else? I know it's going on long. Okay. Some things I've said before. It's time to kind of move past what building to what experience. What got us here won't get us there. And also, I just appreciate all of you around this table because this is not a group of disinterested bureaucrats. There are parents, neighbors, taxpayers. I mean, we're all in it. We've all experienced it. We've all benefited from the district. We're all personally invested. And so I appreciate all of you. I know this is really hard, and I know that it's keeping us up at night. So, any other comments on just the plans that we have in front of us? We'll have more opportunity to ask questions. If not, Mrs. Voigt.
I have one more.
Yep.
As we talk about merging the STEM programs together, have we talked about to the control boards for those programs? Are they, in the midst of this whole decision-making process, are they very supportive of making the move, et cetera?
The governance board is what you're referring to. Administratively, at the district level, we have not, but the principals have have the conversations with the governance board on a regular basis, and Ms. Getterman works with, and it's been a regular topic on some of their meetings, and she's our cabinet liaison. Go ahead if you want to.
We just met, the charter school principals and I just met this week around a variety of things, including contracts and governance board roles and responsibilities. So principals are the partner with the governance board, and so they've been sharing information as needed, but also if I can attend and have attended some of the meetings to provide information, just really being sure that we're sharing accurate information to a variety of stakeholders.
Okay. Should we move on to the next item. Okay, the moment Mr. Zenobia has been waiting for. So, in an attempt to err toward retaining options, so that the intent is not to just clear the deck and run forward, but I want to make sure that there's minimal interest in certain options, that we have the opportunity to retain them. I have a process that aligns with Robert's rules, and it'll give us some opportunity to try to reduce. It'll also give us some opportunity if someone feels like something didn't work in that process to bring something back. But what I would like to do is read the process and then ask for a roll call to support, ask for some support for that process. And if you have thoughts about, what we might change, we could do that. And if we have some issues that come up along the way, we can be flexible with how we go about it, okay? It's not intended to be fully eliminating anything, and as we talked earlier, everything is still part of the conversation going forward. So what we have outlined is this. Each of us would get a sheet of paper that lists options A through G, just with the titles, so you have a little reminder of what those options are, but by now I think we could all probably repeat them. The first step would be to identify the three that you would be most interested in having a full analysis for. There's no prioritization to those three, so you would be identifying three. You can't identify one multiple times. But you can pick three. But you don't have to pick three. So if there's one in particular and you don't want to cast a vote for something else, that's okay too. So if you could pick the three that you like the most. And so just to be clear, just in transparency of how we're doing this process, there's no secret ballot. We can only do that when we're doing officer identification. So there's no secret ballot. But just so that we're not influencing each other with the things that we're picking, we'll write those on a sheet. Ms. Zettinger can help us tally those. And so any options in the first round that would receive 0 or 1, we would just eliminate those, which should be pretty straightforward. And then we'll kind of see how many we have left. And then when we get into that next batch, if we have between, 3 to 5, we'll kind of see where we land. Then I would like to have folks motion to eliminate an option. So if we have some with say 2, 3 votes, we could make a motion to eliminate. I would propose that we have a 2/3 vote to eliminate. What that means is that 6 people would have to say that they want to eliminate it. That way we're not immediately dismissing something that 3 people would be interested in the event that going through the analysis would potentially tell us something that would change our mind, right? But we'll kind of see how many we end up with. And then if we still have a large number, we may want to go through this process again of casting for 3 just to see where we land. Does that make sense? Mr. Wad?
Yeah, just a quick clarification. So when we get to the point where we may be discussing eliminating, or someone may be making a motion to drop from consideration one of the plans, I assume there'll be an opportunity to debate that, so that if we have different opinions, it's not just going to be votes, there'll be an opportunity to debate those as they are proposed?
I'm fine with that. There's nothing in this process that would prevent us from debating. Mr. Harlan?
Do you have a specific goal in mind with the number of plans at the end of the night?
I think from the administration's effort perspective, we would benefit to get it to 2, 3 max. If there's a clear separation, then we could maybe propose to eliminate the third one. I think the fewer that they have, the more in-depth analysis we can get. And then, as we already said, we could always bring some of those ideas back. And I think, again, the ongoing conversation is, I think Mrs. Koenig said this best, there may be a number of schools in that particular plan, but when we get into the analysis and we're looking at maps and boundaries and things, those just may be for reconsideration. Okay? Any other questions? Does that seem fair? Mrs. Gren?
So is it 2 or 3, I guess? I just want to make sure that.
The first step would be you could choose up to 3.
Okay.
That you prefer.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And this is not saying that you would necessarily, that's the way you will land. It's just what would you like to see that in-depth analysis of?
Okay. Mhm. So this is specifically just for depth analysis?
Yeah.
That-
And
okay.
those that we're dismissing, though, we're kind of setting aside for consideration right now.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
And then could possibly pull those back in?
Some concepts of them, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Makes sense? Okay. So I'm motioning I'm going to make a motion to execute that process for down selection, so I would like to have a second to that.
Second.
Thank you. And then Sue, could you do a quick roll call for us?
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
David Wad.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. Okay, so I'll give everybody a little bit of time to do their first 3, and I know there's a little tension in the air, so talk amongst yourselves. No, if we could just kind of keep things in order since we are still in session. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
What is going on?
That's right, yeah.
And it's simply a vote. We're not ranking, we're not.
No, just put an X or a check mark on the ones that correct.
I guess I have a.
Just assist, yeah. We're still in session. We're still in session, so if we could just hold for a sec. Yeah. Would that be okay? We'll take a break before the consent agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
Plan B received 2 votes. Plan D received 4. Plan E, 6. Plan F, 5. Plan G, 8. Plans A and C would be eliminated because they received no votes.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be hard. Okay. So the next opportunity that we have is to consider the next level up. So maybe to simplify things, does anyone, actually think we should maybe consider what we want to do with B, since we have 4 that have a pretty significant level of support. Mr. Wad?
Yeah, I would make a motion to eliminate B from consideration.
Second.
Okay. We did agree that we could discuss that if we wanted to. Mr. Zenobia?
Just to make the clarification, although we're eliminating the plan, which is B, Les Paul could still potentially be a STEM site, correct? K-8 STEM.
It's in other plans. As
Right,
that, yeah.
just to clarify. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Ms. Settinger, would you take a roll call for us?
Anthony Zenobia?
Aye.
Eric Brooks?
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski?
Aye.
Thomas Harlan?
Aye.
Natalie Gren?
Aye.
Diane Voigt?
Aye.
Betty Koenig?
Aye.
David Wad?
Aye.
Kelly Piasek?
Aye. So we've eliminated B, passes 9-0. So we have a little bit of a cluster of interest. Any thoughts?
I would motion to remove Plan D, and my thinking there is, I think we have captured in plans F and G those characteristics. So I would move to eliminate Plan D.
Okay. Mr. Harlan, second. Okay. Any discussion about that? Mr. Watt? And then Mrs. Koenig.
Okay. So I actually voted to keep D on the list, or I'm sorry, D on the list. I guess what I was looking to accomplish with my list was try to find 3 unique configurations so that we could see what each one of them looks like. The thing that is unique about D is the idea of the K-3 at numerous elementary schools, the 4-6 at the middle schools, and then 7-12 at, for those higher up. That is the only configuration we have like that where we try to focus. Well, first we try to get 4th through 6th graders who may be developmentally similar into the same building and perhaps out of the buildings with the K-3, and also attempts to utilize our middle schools. While obviously I've made comments tonight that suggest I don't know that that's what we need to do. If there is a strong feeling within our community that we need to utilize them, then I think we need an option that helps us see what I think is the best way to utilize them that I've seen on any of the plans.
Mrs. Koenig and then Mrs. Kozlowski.
And for option D was and from my perspective, the option that had the most movement for students, which I don't think is optimal. I understand the uniqueness of the configuration, but I also know kids and I know families, and I think about every 3 years after 3 years, moving to another school and then moving to another school. I'm just thinking of the districting, the reconfiguration, the transportation piece. There's just a lot of moving parts. And a lot of, I feel like renovations we'd have to make for some schools to be better for 4 through 6 versus K-3. So that was my biggest concern with that particular option.
Well, I also voted to keep D for analysis, but I'm going to now explain why I might be open to not keeping it. For the same reason Mr. Wad said, I think it does offer an alternative that's different from the EFG, that there's a lot of similarities between those three, but I think we are kind of trending toward those similarities. What I really like about it is less the building part and more the services part, which is different than how we're going about every other plan. I think that the ability to have a lot of enrichment and specials and things for fourth, fifth, and sixth graders would be very unique, and it would create a really wonderful experience. The challenge with that is if you look at the map of our middle schools, they are all very close to each other. And so for families like mine and Mr. Zenobia's that live way out in little tiny corners of the district, the idea of fourth graders getting on a bus and going that far for fourth grade, and some of, what we appreciate about families being able to be present in that elementary experience. As much as we've been talking about buildings, for me, that one was about the services, but I think the complexity for families could also be a challenge. And so I like how it looks in concept, but I would be, I think we're kind of moving in this direction of some things that we like differently. So given where we landed with some of the other options and the strength of support for those, I would also probably be willing to change my mind on that. So, Mr. Wad? Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, I appreciate the conversation on that because I also voted to keep D on my initial list, which, considering where I was when D was first unveiled, like many people in this community, I am shocked that I left that on my final list. But as the conversations continued to evolve around it, I became more, as Dr. Piasek pointed out, intrigued by the opportunity for services that could be offered in this model and almost wanted to keep it just because it was different from some of the other ones that we were looking at. I was very torn between D and F for my final vote. And the reason why I opted to go with D over F was with F being K-6 elementary and G also being, albeit different, K-6 and 7-12. For me, F and G were very close to each other, but then again, there's a lot of overlap with D and G as well. So there are plenty of points made that I think are valid in terms of why we should or shouldn't keep D, but my reasoning for it was I thought F and G were very, very similar to one another.
Mr. Harlan?
My largest concerns about D were the DL programs being heavily located on one side of the district, and I know that there are certain pieces, and then the other aspect is the schools being only up till 4K to 3, you lose that leadership, quote unquote leadership of even the fourth and fifth graders. There is a pretty significant buddy system that takes place even from the fifth grade down to that. And I don't think that it would be a successful plan for us.
Well, anybody thought we all had our minds made up has been proven wrong. So, and yet we have a motion that was seconded on that. Okay. Any other comments? So the motion is to remove D. So a vote of aye would be agreeing to unlist D. Mrs. Ettinger?
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
David Wad.
No.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
No.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Passes 7-2. Everybody okay? Everybody's at peace? Okay. All right. So that leaves us with E, F, and G. We had 5 for F, 6 for E, 8 for G. So I think there's pretty strong request to see all of those built out. I think something Mr. Brooks said was he was choosing between D and F. I myself was doing the same. So I don't know if anyone I'm curious if anyone feels the need to further refine this list, but I'd also like to maybe hear from Dr. Siebert and his team about whether that's something you think you could work with, since there are some close variations among those plans.
I think it's a good question. I do think there are some similarities with those plans. So I think I think I'm just trying to make some eye contact. I think we could figure out, if you wanted us to build out more fully each of those three plans, because that would help in your thinking, I think we could do that.
What do you all think? Do we want to try to, yeah, Mrs. Koenig?
Is there any value in maybe looking at E and F a little closer and looking at where the differences are, and then maybe considering picking of the two, which one we want? Because that is a lot of work, having three plans. I do understand that. But it seems like E and F are fairly similar, and they have a very comparable amount of votes that they got. It looks like G is solid, like we would like that one, built out with 8 votes. But the other two, is it worth having a brief conversation about, the similarities or differences? Is there a way we could, I don't know, not meld the two, but like kind of find some similarities to almost combine them, or look where they're different? And I guess, I don't know, just to make it easier for the administration, instead of having 3 plans, just looking at what's the difference between the two. What are the main differences?
Sure, let's just go through maybe the infographics on each one. That'll kind of refresh us. So E, we call the 3 dual elementary sites. So you see we are using 90% of the capacity, with Banting, Bethesda, and Higher being the dual sites, and we have a total of 9 elementary sites in that plan. We're using the 2 middle schools to their capacity for 6-8, Horning and Butler, because Les Paul is becoming the STEM. And then we have the 73% cap at the high school. As opposed to F, where, because we're going 4K6, we're bringing another elementary back into the mix. That one is being Lowell in this option. So we're at 10 elementaries with the same 3 dual language sites. We're at 93% capacity. This is the one where in F, we're not using the middle schools fully, where we're doing just 7th and 8th grade. We're using 71% of the cap based on the 24-25 enrollment. And again, 73% of the capacity at the high school level. So that's the difference between the two. I would say F, I thought, at the workshop, kind of generated the discussion for G, in a way, right? A combination maybe of some things you liked about E, but then when you saw K6 and F, you thought about a G that would be a K6, 7, 12. So if you wanted variation, one way to think about it would be to have E and G be the ones that would get the more full analysis. But again, if you wanted all 3, I think we can figure that out.
Mr. Zenobia and then Mr. Wad.
Yeah, my question was, if we look at Plan E and it's really the 3 dual sites, can't those be integrated into either Plan F or G? I mean, if that was a consideration to be made in the future, and we wanted to do that, I mean, by keeping the plan, that's just an extra plan, but couldn't those 3 sites be within the structure, either structure we would have in F and G?
Yes, actually, those 3 dual sites at the elementary level remain the same in E, F, and G.
Okay. So, and not to, in no way do I endorse saying that we wouldn't want 3 dual sites, but I think at this point in the discussion, for me, eliminating E just takes it off the table. And if you're left with F and G to look at, you are still looking at Plan E within either of those structures. I think what I'm trying to get at is, it's, from my perspective and from what I've heard other board members say, we're looking at changing, the grade structure significantly. And so these three specific sites in a specific plan don't necessarily have that much importance within that structure change. I mean, if we're going to change the structure of, say, K6, 7, 12, we can still have 3 dual language sites. And so, from my perspective, why not just get it down to 2 and be at F and G and work from there with all these other options that we already know we're trying to make work within this structure. So.
Mr. Watt, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
Mr. Watt, and then.
Yeah, thank you. So here's why I feel strongly that we should have analysis for all 3. So we all agree E and G are fundamentally different in terms of the delivery model, right? E would keep middle schools. By definition, we would keep our middle schools, and our grade schools would be K-5, right? And our high schools would be 9-12. That would keep the traditional model. I think we've heard from enough people in the community that seem to think that having middle school at the high school is a bad idea, that we need more analysis so that we can either reaffirm their concerns or perhaps allay them should we decide to go that route. I think it's important to look at K-6 and then 7-8 at the middle schools and the conventional 9-12 because we've heard from the community that there are a lot of people who feel strongly about 6th grade returning to the elementary schools, right? Which doesn't happen in E. 6 remains at the middle school. And then obviously, there was obviously an appetite on this board for looking at the K-6, 7-12 model. And I mean, I think it's clear that there's a high interest in at least getting that analysis. The other thing that I like about F in analyzing it would be folding in some sort of analysis that would also help us if we decided to do a staged implementation of G. So I remain concerned that the 7-12 lift is too much to get done by 26, 27. And I also think this community needs to see a lot more information about what that would look like, not just conceptually, but like how would we actually structure our high schools with the facilities and infrastructure to address what some of the concerns are about, the intermixing of 7th grade students with high school students too often or in areas of the school or at times of the day that maybe they don't want them to. And one of 2 things will happen from that analysis. Either A, once people see it and we see what the plan is, and that would be for the board too, this doesn't look like what I thought it would. Maybe I'm not as crazy about that idea now, or it will reinforce that it's not only doable, but it actually creates some positives that maybe people, not just at this table, but in the community hadn't considered. So I would be very opposed to dropping anything because I think there's value in doing analysis of all 3 of those options because they are uniquely different and they give us like the model, like if we ultimately decide K-6 is the way we want to go, but we're not sure about 7-12 and we want to do more analysis on that, I think that builds in some runway for us, and we can come back and make the decision about do we eliminate the middle schools and move those kids up to high school or not at a future time.
Mrs. Koenig.
Mr. Watt, that's a really good point you brought up, and that would allow us to be able to, bring those 6th graders back and start there, and yet not completely, close the middle schools, in haste. That would allow for significant change, heading us in a direction that we could implement that next step, which would be 7-12. And again, it would give us time to think about it, do further studies. That is a very good point, and I think you're right about maybe looking into all 3, including F as well.
Mr. Brooks?
Thank you. Yeah, I
think those are good points as well. Dr. Sieber, can you just clarify, when we talk about the analysis, I guess, what are the components that we're going to be looking into? I know you mentioned the rebounding, the, potential transportation, just to get a better idea of what all would be kind of included. Does that look at the feasibility of, for example, 712, how we would partition off middle schoolers and high schoolers? I guess just give me a bigger picture of what that looks like.
Yeah, I guess, from our perspective, the main components were staffing, trying to estimate that, boundaries, transportation patterns, services in terms of a lot of that is in terms of the staffing, like what can we, allocate where to the best of Sharon's ability, as we're forecasting. But yeah, in terms of 712, like we feel like we need to get to New Berlin. We need to do more research into all of that, and then think about what does that look like in each of our high schools, because they're all built differently. They all have different levels of current capacity. And so, yeah, we would benefit certainly from more time with the 712.
Can I offer one other piece of analysis that I think would be important in addition to what was just listed? And I think that would be sort of an infrastructure cost estimate for the changes that we believe would be needed at the various sites if they were adopted, right? So if we decide to adopt K-8 at Les Paul, what are the costs of those revisions that have been talked about? Or if we go to a 712 high school and we need to try to find ways to partition or create other infrastructure to help keep those boundaries between 7, 8, and 9 through 12, what that looks like. Because that's another thing that, at least to me, is very hard for me to understand, like, is that cost so high that it becomes cost prohibitive? I don't know if I don't see those numbers.
Yeah, and even beyond just the cost of the new, configurated schools, but when we're looking and talking about upgrades at some of the other elementary schools to accommodate more students coming in, that's got to be factored in as well. And I know Dr. Piasek's done some independent work on the calculating the number of transitions that it would take for a student in kindergarten to go through their academic career here in Waukesha under the various plans. So I think being able to factor in and identify how many transitions that would impact, like how many transitions each plan would have for students, just to show what that various levels of disruption might be in different number of schools that they have to transition to.
So let me respond to that. So here's my current concern, or maybe reason why I wouldn't necessarily pursue F as an in-depth, is number one, I think it leaves us with a lot of capacity. So if that were the end, I appreciate what you're saying is about it being an intermediate, but if that were the end, I don't think we get there. As much as I like the 6th grade going back into elementary, I think that addresses a lot of things. What I would see is that if the administration felt like they needed to stage it, that they might end up backing into F in some capacity, but I would rather have them do that analysis and understand what it would take for G compared to E, because I think E gets us further along in the capacity side. That's why I like E. Retains some of the things about the middles, gets us the 3 dual language. So for me, F is like, if it's a necessity for G, I would understand them proposing that, but I don't know that it's worth having them do a full analysis on F, because it's a modification. Again, as much as I like the 6th grade down, don't know that it has enough runway. Ms. Kozlowski, and then back to Mr. Bott.
Yeah, I think in looking at the difference between E and F, I liked the points that Mr. Watt had. However, when I think about where we ended at the workshop and where we were thinking about driving the district forward, the goal was to try to get us to a K-6, 7-12 model. And I think if we come back with almost where we're starting, it's like, well, how about this? And then how about this? And then let's look over here and layer that in. I think we're going to naturally find those pieces when we start to drill down. And I think we need to just be a little bit more concrete with, here's 2 choices that we have that get us to what we said was our goal. or what we thought was our goal, because until you do the deep dive, it'll pivot. So I mean, I would prefer we stuck with E and moved away from F, and then just kept it to an E and G focus for them. And I think from the administrative legwork as to what we're asking them in an analysis, because this also layers in transportation. When you hear that, you're hearing the parents tell me, well, and I get it, it's personal to me. You need to tell me where my child is going to go. And I think those are some of the things. And now I've got 3 options with different pieces and moving targets that's still too much confusion for me to be able to put forward. And we may backtrack a little bit, but I think narrowing down the scope allows the deep dive to naturally happen, because we're going to find something that we're like, or pivot. So for me, I would also move to eliminate F.
Is that a motion?
Is that a motion?
That was not, sorry.
Not yet, okay. Mr. Watt. Lean into, so, Mr. Watt.
Yeah, so, I appreciate, Ms. Piasek's point that if we're going to look at G, we may see what F looks like if in fact there is some natural staging. On the other hand, as much as this is information for us as a board, I also think we have to consider the information being available to the public. And I think it's important that for those that want a traditional high school or a elementary, middle school, high school configuration, that also want our 6th graders back in elementary, that they see what that looks like with the inefficiencies that are built in. I think it's important to provide our community with what that actually looks like. I share the concerns that doesn't get us far enough. I will be back talking about a middle school and a high school in 5 years if we go that route. But at the same time, I think it's important for our community to see that information. I think that gives us an important piece of, an important set of data points for our community members as well. One question I have, and this may be too heavy of a lift for the administration, but we seem to have transitioned from saying in all of our plans Bethesda needs to close to 3 plans that say Bethesda needs to stay open, and now Hawthorne needs to close, and perhaps Lowell as well. I'm just wondering how much more work there would be to giving us like an E1 and an E2, one that shows us Bethesda, one that shows us Hawthorne. If that's too heavy of a lift, I get it. I know there's a ton of work there, but I don't know if you're just focusing on that one little geographic area separated by about 3 miles of Hawthorne in terms of redistricting, or if there are so many dominoes that tip that it just creates an overwhelming amount of work to try to come up with what that looks like. But that's another thing where if it was possible and it wasn't too heavy a lift, I think that would be helpful for both us as a board and the community, because I see benefits in considering or excluding either one of those schools as a candidate for closure.
Mrs. Kozlowski.
I would respond to that, and I would say that I want us to be cautious as a board that we're not reinventing the wheel. So the recommendations are coming from the administration based on guidance that we took from the community, came from guidance that we pulled in from a 3.5-hour workshop on where we wanted to go. And I think we just really need to be cautious to not try to slice and dice this. I think we need to come down to 2 solid plans to allow them to do that. It inevitably is going to bring forward things that we need to learn and understand all of that. And we can, as we've said numerous times, there's no right answer, there's no easy answer, but we can't analyze at the depth that is needed every possible plan, nor keep asking them to change this. I think we're past that point where we're asking to carve out sub 1, sub 2, sub 3. I just don't think that's, I get it, but I don't think that's the approach we want to be in.
Mrs. Kren.
I do agree with Mrs. Kozlowski and also Mr. Wad. and I will explain why. I don't think that we should do that deep dive in as well. I think we need to stay the course with what's been presented to us. And with that said, I also do feel that the three options should be analyzed. And I think it's very important just to keep remembering that this is not a proposal. So these are going to be reviewed and we will pick apart and discuss again. So if we want to put Bethesda back in or something else that makes more sense, then, we can definitely look and go back in with that. But at least this gives us that start. But I do agree with Mr. Wad and offering the three options for analysis.
I think it's important to be thoughtful and deliberate about the work that we're doing. I don't want to rush people into a decision. I also don't want to lose efficiency with the momentum that we have because we're doing a lot of extra work for things that might not rise to the surface unless out of maybe necessity. So I'm not necessarily making a case one way or the other. One thing I do want to say, though, is to Mr. Wad's point that we've moved to these alternative plans. We have to see what that's going to look like in practice, because I am not going to support a hack-a-wall solution that gets us, half of a security or safety solution to a situation that we're not comfortable with. So I think we have to be responsible in that regard and make sure that some of the reasons we came into this process with are not just tossed away because we ran out of time. So I think those are the important things. And, again, I keep coming back to services. What are we going to be able to wrap around our students? And then the piece for all of our community members that have been a part of this along the way, so many that are still here with us tonight, is that we continue to be talking about boundary lines as well as buildings. And so this is a new level of this conversation where it could be different even if that building is still in the mix. So this is a lot. So I think the longer, we drag this out and the more plans that we're doing this in-depth analysis on, it's going to just make it more complicated. So I'm just gonna try this just because it would be worth trying. Do you want to try?
I would make a motion to dismiss option F.
I'll
I would second.
Mr. Zenobia can second it. Yep. So an aye vote would be removing F, and we would need 6 in order to remove it. Ms. Zettinger?
David Wad,
No.
Thomas Harlan,
No.
Diane Voigt,
No.
Natalie Gren,
No.
Betty Koenig,
No.
Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Eric Brooks,
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye. Okay, we'll keep it. 5-4. We will keep it. All right. Sorry. All right. Mr. Zenobia?
Just a general comment. As close as maybe that was, the first 4 plans that we worked so hard on to get this moving have all been eliminated. And we're left with 3 new plans in essence. I just want to thank not only the administration, not only the board, but really the community who has really kind of, that was a design to get involvement and have this move forward. And I think a lot has come out of this. We got a long way to go, but I really do appreciate the feedback that we have gotten, the people that have come and spoken, to really kind of help mold this process, which was the whole point of doing it this way. So I think we're making progress. Whatever we come to in the end is going to be a very complicated and hard decision. And as a parent of 3 kids in elementary and middle school, I know that every parent in this district is going to make it work for their kids, because that's what we as parents do. So I have complete faith and confidence in the district and the families that attend here to give their input, help us in this process, but also, to make it work when the time comes. So I just appreciate that, and I think this has been a long process tonight, but I think we've made a lot of progress, so thank you to everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to take a 5-minute break, and then we will reconvene at, well, I'll say 9, well, in 5 minutes. Yeah, give our folks a chance to depart. Thank you. Okay, we are ready to reconvene. It's 9:44. Thank you, everybody. I just want to say that I'm so impressed, proud of this board, the professionalism, the ability to work through difficult things and make some really tough decisions. So thank you guys for working through that with me. We are still in our general business, moving to our consent agenda. So let's start with public gifts. Mr. Clark.
Yeah, 2 gifts tonight. Prairie Elementary received $571.74 from Christ the Servant Lutheran Church to be used for classroom and school supplies. And the school district received school supplies from Evangelical Reformed United Church of Christ, estimated value of $1,098. And from the Machine Shed Restaurant, I guess there's 3 gifts, 2 bullets. Machine Shed Restaurant, estimated value of $500 for families in need for school supplies as well.
Thank you. It's very generous of all of them. Your agenda tonight includes various categories for approval. If any board member wishes to have an item set aside for separate consideration, you'll have that opportunity in a moment. There are no expulsions for your consideration. There is one revised policy, Policy 2416, Student Privacy and Parental Access to Information. If anyone wishes to have an item set aside for separate consideration, could you indicate so at this time? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Zenobia, will you present the consent agenda, please?
Yes, thank you. Earlier this evening, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee approved 2 resignations and 8 new or modified contracts. The information was provided in your packet, and an addendum was placed at your desk. I move that the consent agenda be approved as amended.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Harland. Anything else? Okay, Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Diane Voigt.
Aye.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Natalie Gren.
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski.
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
David Watt.
Aye.
Thomas Harlan.
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 9-0. Moving on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Siebert.
All right, thank you, Dr. Piasek. We'll begin tonight with the overnight field trip report given by Ms. Kennerman.
We have just a few overnight field trips to share that were recently approved. So the first one is for students at Horning to attend a post-8th grade Washington, D.C. trip this coming June. The varsity dance team from North potentially going to Dance Invitational in December. From South, we have cheerleading regional competition as well as dance team. The regional competitions in Minnesota and dance team would be in Florida. North, South, and West also had a recent overnight approval for DECA, the State Career Development Conference. And then North, South, and West also had DECA International Career Development Conference, potentially in Georgia. And those are all the overnight field trips.
All right, thank you, Ms. Kennerman. Very quickly tonight, just a big shout out. It's been day 7 of the school year. So congratulations, we're off to a great start. All of our kids, staff, teachers, administrators, families. It's been a great start. And then just one more thank you to our custodial and maintenance crew that we had here earlier tonight. Thank you for your nice comments to them. They worked very, very hard, and they're a great group to recognize. So I certainly couldn't be more proud of them. And all of this facility conversation has made that much more difficult because we have facilities that most school districts would gobble up in a heartbeat, right? They're all very, very nice facilities, and we have some hard decisions to make, but we can be very proud that we have those facilities and that our kids and teachers get to experience those on a daily basis. So that concludes my report, Dr. Piasek.
Thank you, Dr. Siebert, and thank you to all of you and your respective departments and teams that have been doing a lot over the last few weeks to have a great start to the school year.
You bet.
All right, we are going to move into our committee reports, and tonight we're starting with Human Resources and Compensation Committee. Mr. Zenobia.
Thank you. The Human Resources and Compensation Committee met earlier this evening. And while we had no additional action items to report out here, we always do cover those which are in the consent agenda. But what we don't always have in HR is a couple of discussion information items, which we have tonight. The first of which is our key performance indicator update. In September of '24, the HR committee updated the HR KPI to focus on teacher retention, specifically stating that teacher retention rate will be 92% or higher. For 2025, we have had a retention rate of 91%. Human Resources will continue to monitor the data over year, and we will work to meet that goal. Our second discussion information item was the review of our exit survey data. The committee reviewed this data, and the two main reasons the 24 respondents were not returning was retirement, which was 12 of them, and relocation, which was 5 of them. Additional exit survey data was provided for the board members in board docs. We'll continue to collect and monitor the data to see if there are any areas to improve in. And that, Dr. Piasek, concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Zenobia. I think that the retention rate that we're seeing right now is still quite excellent. So I love that we have a KPI and we're tracking that and that we're close to it. But thank you for all your work. All right, our next committee report is for Policy and Government Relations, given by Mr. Wad.
Right. Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. The Policy and Government Relations Committee met on Monday, September 8th, 2025. If everyone is okay with it, I'll discuss the discussion information items first before the action item, because they were just a couple of technical corrections. The first technical correction was to Policy 5500, Student Code of Classroom Conduct. There was an incorrect legal citation, and it was removed. A reference to Wisconsin Administrative Code, PI 41, and a reference to Vocational Education Program Guidelines for eliminating discrimination and denial of services from the Department of Education Office of Civil Rights 1979 were removed. The second was a technical correction to Policy 9150, School Visitors. Again, this is a technical correction. The policy cross-references were updated, and the online availability of Policy 9130, public requests, suggestions, or complaints, was acknowledged as a part of the technical correction. If there's any questions on that, I'll move on to our action item. There was, as I said, one discussion and possible action item on the agenda. Policy 9150.02, campaigning and political activity, is a new school district of Waukesha policy drafted with the intent of providing a standalone policy to reiterate which political activities are permissible and those which are prohibited on school grounds or with school resources or at school-sponsored events. The policy was discussed with an emphasis on how it aligns with existing policy, administrative guidelines, including 3231A, participation in political activities, and the employee handbook. A draft of the policy was provided to the committee members with color-coded references to our existing policies and guidelines. I think these were also attached in board docs for this meeting, and they included Policy 3216, 4216, staff dress and appearance and support staff dress and appearance, Policy 2240, controversial issues in the classroom, Policy 3231, outside activities of staff, Policy 5720, student activism, Policy 5730, equal access for non-district sponsored student clubs and activities, Policy 7510, use of district facilities, Policy 9150.01, elected officials speaking in schools or to students, Policy 9700.01, advertising and commercial activities, Administrative Guideline 3231A, participation in political activities, and the employee handbook. The Policy and Government Relations Committee approved the new policy 9150.02, campaigning and political activity, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Mrs. Voigt?
I was not supportive of passing it at the committee level. I have a couple concerns that I'd like to share my reasoning why. One of them would be, as you take a look at the policy, yes, it is putting together a lot of other, the policies that were mentioned, but the things that are not highlighted are like new things that have been written to sort of merge it all together. And I have a real concern with number 3, use of district property. I hadn't really thought about it till the public comment that occurred on Monday evening. The concept there is that district facilities, equipment, official logos, mascots, and then it goes on to others, may not be used for campaigning and political activity. And the comment was, very pointedly towards me, that I wouldn't be able to use a reference to the mascot for North High School when campaigning. And my concern is, if we can't use any of the logos for the school district of Waukesha, we can't use a logo for the school district of Waukesha, that logo, because we're running for school board, for this particular district. It's really hard for me to think that a parent that has supported an athletic team that's gone all the way to state wouldn't be able to use that school's logo, showing pride for their connection to that school through the years. When you're campaigning, the notion of, if you have a shirt on that's, for West High School, and as they were going to state, and you use any of that imagery, that would be not acceptable, with the way this is worded. After working at North High School for 38 years, a lot of my stuff has North logo kinds of images on it, if to use pictures. I think it's just an unrealistic expectation to say that we can't use official logos or images of mascots. You have a picture taken at a WEF event with a mascot, and you can't use that because we can't, by these rules, we're not supposed to use that as part of the new language in this policy.
Mrs. Koenig?
Nor should you absolutely not want to have any of those items when you're campaigning if you are running for an office, because you're giving the appearance that you're being endorsed by said shirt activity. And when it comes to running for politics, you don't want to, you shouldn't, those should not be things that you should be displaying, because again, you're indicating that, this is you're supported by whatever you're being, wearing. And you want to, that's something that shouldn't be mixed when you're running for an office. You're running as an individual for an office. I shouldn't be able to use the Waukesha logo behind me on my literature. I shouldn't be wearing a West t-shirt, nor should I be wearing a WEF vest, because that's given the impression that I'm being endorsed, and that's not okay. So I don't quite understand the argument that you're making regarding that might be an issue. It should not be at all any kind of endorsement for anything with the schools or logos, at least in my opinion.
So Mr. Watt has a comment, and then Mr. Zenobia.
Yeah, so I'll echo a lot of what Mrs. Koenig just stated. Especially when the use of the logo, well, let's leave out the use of the logo for the time being. When someone is dressed up in the official mascot gear of a particular high school, with their arm around the candidate, and then it is displayed prominently on that candidate's website, I don't think there's anyone who can argue that there isn't an implication that Sparky, the North Star polar bear, endorses a particular candidate for a school board. And whether or not the candidate intended to portray that is irrelevant. And that's exactly why this policy is needed. I can tell you that as a candidate in the year that that happened, and not being the one that had Sparky with his or her arm around me in a campaign photo, even though I had been a youth football coach in the Waukesha North football program, had kids that attended Waukesha North and graduated from there, I took offense to it. Just because somebody taught there does not give them the ability to portray that somehow their association with a school is more germane than any other candidate who may have ties or no ties. Precisely the reason we need to do it. Now, I suppose if a candidate is wearing a T-shirt that they acquired, like I've got gear that has Waukesha North football on it, and I take a picture wearing that, there isn't an implication because there wasn't an active attempt by someone within the district to use those resources to advocate it. I got it without it being a part of my campaign, and I'm out in public wearing it. I think it's borderline, and I would try to be very careful as a candidate not to do it. But it's this kind of stuff that I think is at the root of this, when there is actual resources that are used from the school, paid for by the school and the taxpayers to imply, whether intended or not, that there is a support for that candidate as a result of its use.
Mr. Zenobia?
Thank you. I will try to be a little more general in my comments. I support the policy, and I think there's certainly a need for trying to clean up how campaigning and elections are conducted at all levels for all the reasons that were just stated by Mrs. Canning and Mr. Wad. I think, we're speaking to an issue where we have someone like Mrs. Voigt who's uniquely positioned. Everyone knows your service here for a long period of time, and so it may kind of cloud the reason for the policy. I think during campaigning time and while you are in the active, running your campaign, that all of us should make it a point not to use images that would imply that we have some endorsement or of any kind, whether it's a high school you're affiliated with or, by the same token, if I as a newcomer come in and start buying ads on, the football billboards, gives me an unfair advantage, and I think those things are obvious to everyone. The policy, as clumsy as it is from Neola, is trying to just make this process cleaner. And all of us having...
Just a point of clarification. Yeah. This is not a Neola policy. This is a school board.
My apologies. Right. It brings together all the areas that our policies have that pertain to these areas. And so it tries to put it all in one place for anybody coming in that they can see. And it is, you'd have to go to many places to find all this information. As a new candidate, it's helpful. But it is necessary to try to keep the process as clean as possible and to give the appearance that everybody's on a level playing field as best we can. So it's necessary and certainly support it.
I would like to make a clarifying comment about etiquette versus policy, because I think there's an important distinction. This policy does not tell people what they can and can't wear. It's focused on utilization of district resources. So whether or not it's appropriate to wear Prairie, Meadowbrook, North, West, Rose Glen, whatever that is, none of us give up our identity as parents when we become board members, but we're called on to serve the district, and we do that in whatever capacity we can. So I don't necessarily think that this policy says, and I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page on that it's clear enough. I don't think this policy says that I can't wear a Waukesha North t-shirt, or that Mr. Harland can't wear a Prairie sweatshirt. I think what it says is I can't I can't advance a representation that the district, in the use of its resources, is advocating for me. But I don't think we're getting at people wearing clothing, and I don't think the policy says that. It says that you can't utilize the logos, and I see that as, and we have a lot of things that have happened over the last few years that if we look to our policy probably would suggest that you shouldn't do it. But I think the necessity and the purpose of this policy is to make it very clear, and that would be, how you're going, you can't put the district logo on your campaign website. You can't put it on your campaign signs. That's an image and likeness of the district. And that would give an artificial impression that the district is endorsing you or that you have that relationship with the district. And I think that's true of the facilities and things too. That's where I see it. Mrs. Voigt.
I feel very directly targeted by the writing of this policy. Especially when he brings out that image, which was not meant to be an endorsement. My daughter was the mascot, and we were at a fundraising event. There's nothing to do with campaigning in that context at all. And I take very personally in number one, the fact that there's no shirts, no pins, no buttons, specifically, identifying any of the kinds of things that, I have successfully used in 3 campaigns, not as a negative thing at all, but just encouraging people to vote.
So the way that I interpret that is that's applying to staff. That is not, what, I guess I'm not understanding why you would need to have campaign pins, shirts, and buttons that our staff are wearing while they're teaching.
The concept goes on to say that you can't do it on any school property for the entire time of the election term. So if you go to a football game and my daughters would happen to have a button on their purse, that would be campaigning. If they don't, First Amendment rights kind of thing, it's like they are not allowed to wear anything on school property that's of a campaigning nature, from January through April. It's like, it seems like a very targeted to me and my family policy that's been written here. And I don't think it's necessary. I have been very conscious about the rules of campaigning. I did not intend helping walk my daughter around in the Sparky uniform as being something that was in violation of school policy. Never dawned on me that it would be taken in that type of context. Like I said, I feel very, very targeted with this. I don't think that we need a policy, maybe administrative guidelines, in terms of interpreting all the policies. And one of the things we'd asked for at the discussion was, what can a staff member do and what can't they do? What's permissible, what's not? Give us guidelines to that effect as an administrative policy, an administrative guideline, not necessarily a policy. And what can candidates do and not do? I see that more being identification about where can you put signs and where are they, if you put them in the wrong place, are be taken down by the government, et cetera. As a candidate, it'd be nice to know those kinds of guidelines and those sorts of things. I think this is, seriously, I take it very personally as being just a target to anything that, affects me and my family.
Mr. Watt?
So I just want to point out that item 1 is specifically labeled campaigning by staff, right? It is tied directly to policy, and I'm quoting from the policy 3216 and 4216. Staff are not permitted to wear or display on their person any item, examples, symbols, graphics, images, or text, while at work that may be considered political, controversial, divisive, or which is likely to distract from student learning. Clearly, wearing the campaign button of somebody during work hours is political activity. Whether you happen to be the child or spouse or parent of the candidate or not, it's clearly political. So there is already policy. I would suggest, Mrs. Voigt, if you have a problem with that policy, that that be brought back, and then we can address the consolidation of that into this policy if it's adopted. I'm just going to say also, I'm struggling to understand why you may feel personally targeted by this policy. It is, as I said, and we've talked about in two different policy meetings now and now here, that this is simply a consolidation of existing policy. And
Can I just redirect, Mr. Webb, that we're having a board discussion and not a one-on-one conversation?
fair enough. So I would just say, I don't know why anyone would feel personally targeted by this, as this is policy that is directed, is consolidated for any candidate, or anyone in staff, or anyone to understand how to use the facilities appropriately from a campaigning perspective. I don't know why anyone would feel individually targeted by that, since the policy already exists in multiple places.
Mrs. Koenig?
So, yeah, Mrs. Boyd, I actually am not really thinking much about anything that happened with your campaign with this. I'm thinking about, in general, in the school building and school property and the school environment. Let me just ask you a question. So if a play is going on at, let's just say, South High School, in the back of the brochure, there are candidates running for school board that have taken out ads, endorsing themselves. Is that appropriate? In your mind, is that appropriate that on a school property and in a school, a play environment, on a playlist, that should be something that students and parents should have to look at?
And that's
Mrs. Koenig, I just want to be cautious that we're not
I'm just trying to clarify.
having
'cause
one-on-one
when-
conversation.
When I think of this policy, that's something that comes to my mind. So I'm thinking, in general, isn't the school environment somewhere that should be neutral? And there should be no political activity at all, whether it's, wearing a button in class or any kinds of, or something on a playlist. I mean, that's what I think about with neutrality with this policy.
Again, that was a specific situation that was, a campaigning example that was given, and that's why it's now written into the policy. I had not thought about it, I had not seen it, like I said, it's something that came up because of a recent campaign.
But a school should be neutral, correct? I mean, that's what I feel like this policy's, the essence of the policy is that schools should remain a neutral environment, and there should be, the logos, anything associated with schools should not be associated with any type of campaign. That's what when I read the policies, that's what I'm getting out of it. So which I agree with. So I'm trying to understand the reason why you might feel like it's targeting you. That's why I don't understand why you feel that way, because I'm just looking at
As
this.
he pulls out the image of, of Sparky, I can't help but feel targeted.
Anybody else? Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, I appreciate the work that's come into this policy. I know we kind of got caught, and I was certainly partially to blame for that, of nitpicking and trying to pick out every foreseeable example that could potentially come before us. And I think we ultimately realized correctly that we can't mitigate against every single possible election scenario that could come potentially in violation of this policy. But what I like is that we're just taking all of the things that we already have in policy and we're putting it in place in one specific place. As Mrs. Koenig had pointed out, I think the goal here is twofold. We want to make sure that school resources are not going towards campaigning, especially not during work hours when it comes to the campaigning of staff. But we also want to make sure that there's not an implication that the school district is endorsing a candidate, even if it's kind of a implicit endorsement. I certainly don't look at the reference to official logos or mascots as a restriction on what candidates can wear when they're going door to door. I know I wore my Packers polo plenty when I was going door to door. I don't think people would look at that and think the Packers are endorsing me, certainly not if they read my X feed during the games. But I think the difference there is you are showing support for the school if you're wearing a North shirt or a jacket. The school's not showing support for you, and I think that's the difference, right? You purchase that with your own money or you came across it because you worked there. That's different than using an actual school resource to imply support for you. And I think I wanted to just kind of lay out that differentiation because I think it's important.
I think that's an outstanding point. Anything else? Mrs. Voigt?
My other concern is the opportunity to be able to make candidate forums available, questions and answers, question and answer sessions, meet the candidate kind of situation per se. This is making it, prohibited to do any, if you call it campaigning. I am looking at trying to make available somewhere in our system a chance for our school community to find out which candidates are running for office. Not everybody gets the newspaper, not everybody gets, exposure to, a way to find out who the candidates are and what their qualifications are. I had talked about trying to set up a neutral place like this boardroom that candidates would not have to feel like it's a bias one way or the other, and then be questioned with the same questions that would appear in the newspaper, per se. Questions that everybody that's on the panel of potential candidates could review, together, and be able to then do promotional activities, the concept under number 2, and say we're having a meet the candidate kind of a forum.
I'm just curious, if you don't mind, Mr. Brooks, when state legislators run for office, do they do forums at the state capitol?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. I don't understand why we would do that.
I'm trying to find a neutral place that would be, and the library might be a place like that. Just where could people come together to be able to meet in a setting that's not perceived as a bias one way or the other?
I guess my understanding of the policy is that if the policy passes, that would be an indication that there's not an interest in doing that, because the policy makes it clear that we don't want to host those events on school property. So I understand that's a sticking point for you.
It is a sticking point for me. I think it excludes the possibility of a candidate being able to have a neutral, nonpartisan type of environment to be able to have a candidate forum.
Mr. Wad?
Yeah, first of all, I just don't see that as the district's responsibility. We are not in the business of promoting our own elections. And we certainly don't want to get into a situation where we give the appearance that we're promoting any particular candidate or group of candidates. We have evidence from around the community where supposedly neutral sites came under intense criticism because certain members of the people who viewed the forum felt that it was biased. It was held at Carroll University, 2022. The social media around it became so fierce that the assistant activities director at Carroll University, who helped students put on that forum, had to go on various channels and defend her university and her students from accusations that there was essentially cheating done to benefit a group of candidates. I can't imagine, and off the record, I am aware that people at Carroll said they'll never do it again for that very reason, that people and their students were attacked because there was a perception of bias. Whether there was or wasn't is irrelevant. I see no reason why the district would have any interest in putting itself in a situation like that. And when I think about who it is that would ultimately have to answer the challenges, did your school district advocate or make it easier for a candidate to hold a forum that was unfair? The person that's going to answer for that is the superintendent, who is ultimately going to have to answer to the people who win the election that's being held. I can't think of a worse situation to put our superintendent or members of our district in than in the middle of something like a dispute over whether a forum was valid or not. we should stay as far away from that as humanly possible. There are any number of venues in the community that can be used, and I believe it's up to the candidates if they want to have one to work with their supporters or people that they believe want to put on a forum to find those venues and organize it.
I feel like we're having the same conversation maybe that you had at the policy committee, but are there other things that you need to raise or?
Just my last concept is the idea that I believe it should be an administrative policy, an administrative guideline, I should say, rather than a policy. And the one that's listed here about participation in political activities needs to be reviewed. You know,
I don't know that there are any other administrative guidelines that have authority in this context. They are typically rules of either staff activity or student activity. And what we're talking about here is something that governs candidates, potential community members, and how they can utilize the resources, can or cannot utilize the resources of the district. So I don't know that the authority would be vested in an administrative guideline that would be consistent with what we would have in a policy. Mr. Harlan.
I just want to say, I guess I was going to thank the committee for putting this together. So I don't believe any of us are professional campaigners and newcomers to this type of role and campaign would find this type of document incredibly helpful. So I was going to say thank you to the committee for putting this together and getting it all in one space for that.
Yep, guilty of putting the signs in the wrong place at least once, but not on purpose. So I think we've all been there. And I think that's the nature of these seats. Okay. Shall we take the roll call? Okay.
Natalie Gren,
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia,
Aye.
Thomas Harlan,
Aye.
David Wide,
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski,
Aye.
Eric Brooks.
Aye.
Diane Voigt,
no.
Betty Koenig.
Aye.
Kelly Piasek.
Aye, passes 8-1.
All right, and then just to wrap up my report, Mrs. President, there were no government relations discussions or information items on the agenda at our past meeting. So that concludes my report. The next policy and committee meeting is scheduled for October 13th, 2025 here in the Blair Boardroom.
Thank you. Moving on next to Finance and Facilities, Mrs. Kozlowski.
The Finance and Facilities Committee met on Monday, September 8th. There were no action items and 3 discussion items. The first discussion item is the summer 2025 capital improvement projects. Kyle McCarthy and Chad Carview, I probably mispronounced that, so I apologize, presented a summary report on the 2025 summer capital improvement projects. I would highly encourage people to take a look at what they've done because what they accomplished in such a short amount of time as 2.5 months is remarkable. The second discussion item was the 2025-2026 budget development. The committee reviewed the 2025-2026 preliminary budget and outlined the purpose for the preliminary budget and budget hearing. Important budget development dates leading up to the approval of the final budget and tax levy in late October were also reviewed. And the last discussion item was the monthly budget report. The committee was presented with a general fund budget report outlining the August revenues and expenditures. We were presented, or Ms. Steffe has reported that the SDW received its final 2024-2025 tax payment in August and that the SEI and IDEA grant allocations have returned to pre-pandemic levels. The next FNF meeting is scheduled for Monday, October 6, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Dr. Piasek, this concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Kozlowski. And Mr. Watt, I think you mentioned that 10/13 was your next meeting, but just a clarification for everyone, October is kind of a funky month, so we have 10/6, F&F and policy, and then the 8th is the full board meeting. I'll remind everybody of that at the end.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to teaching and learning, Mrs. Koenig?
Thank you, Madam President. The last Teaching and Learning Committee meeting was held Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025, at 7 p.m. here in the boardroom at Blair. We have 4 discussion information items on our agenda this evening. The first discussion was on Board Policy 2464, Programs for Gifted and Talented Students. Neola Replacement Policy 2464 includes new provisions on state-based statutory language and administrative regulations from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. Neola indicated that they developed this policy with the assistance of the Wisconsin Association for Talented and Gifted, or WATG, and that it would replace the existing policy to account for significant revisions. The committee opted to hear the Gifted and Talented update before discussing the policy updates. When they returned to the policy, the committee discussed some potential changes that reflect the balance between board policy and administrative procedure, which was captured in the GT programming guide. Based on this feedback, the administrative team will work on revisions and bring the policy back to the Teaching and Learning Committee for consideration.
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say I really appreciated hearing all the things that we are doing to serve our gifted and talented kids here in the school district of Waukesha. I think it's very easy to kind of say, oh, those are the kids who are really smart, they're really advantaged, they don't need this additional support. But in a lot of ways, they're very similar to our special ed students who are, they're both diverse learners with various learning needs who need additional supports to be able to realize their full potential. And so I'm happy to see just how much we are doing to serve those kids and what the plan is going forward here in Waukesha.
Okay, all right. The second information item tonight is the Gifted and Talented update. The Teaching and Learning Administrative Team provided an update regarding gifted and talented programming. The update provided background information on the legal requirements, along with highlights of how the team has recently enhanced the program. The team shared how the identification process is done and how services are provided within the framework of a multi-level system of supports with tiers 1, 2, and 3. These 3 examples were shared of programming for advanced learners. The updated website of resources and guidebook was also shared and discussed. Okay, the third discussion item is the assessment communication overview. Last year, the Teaching and Learning team launched a new assessment website to provide information and resources for staff and parents. This report provided an overview of the family communications before and after state and district assessments. Additionally, the Teaching and Learning team highlighted the resources available on our assessment webpage. As part of the report, information was shared on how the district has expanded the use of Infinite Campus and the student information system to include assessment results in the parent portal. And the third item for discussion or information, Waukesha One update. Over 10 years ago, the school district of Waukesha embarked on a one-to-one technology approach, meaning individual devices assigned to each student using an Apple infrastructure. Our instructional technology coordinators, or the ITC, were present at the meeting to provide an update on the work of the Waukesha One team in staff in different roles throughout the district. The team has been working in subgroups focused on next-gen technology to support the learning environment in these ways. Student experience, outreach, supporting teachers and professionals, and adoption and implementation. As a next step to the outreach group, the instructional technology coordinators will be hosting parent technology sessions this fall that will cover a range of topics. Parents across the district are invited to attend. There's no sign-up required. There is information about these sessions on your desks tonight and on our website. Okay, and Madam President, that concludes the Teaching and Learning Committee report. Our next meeting will be held on Thursday, October 2nd, 2025, here at the Blair Administration Building.
Thank you. All right. Next is Student Services by Mr. Harland.
Good.
The Student Services Committee meeting was held on September 2nd, 2025. There were 2 action items and 1 discussion and information item on the agenda. The first action item was the approval of the 2025 and 2026 students at risk of not graduating from high school identification plan. Mr. Pat presented information about the identification, intervention, and annual reevaluation processes. According to Wisconsin State Statute 118.153, this plan must be reviewed annually by the Board of Education. This plan identifies our processes and procedures in alignment with the state statute. The plan was brought forward and discussed and is relatively the same as in the years past. And a 5-0 vote, the Student Services Committee approved the School District of Waukesha Students at Risk Plan as presented.
Second.
Was not a motion, right? I don't believe that was oh, sorry, it was.
It's a long night.
Go ahead.
And you so did move, and it was seconded?
Yes, I did. I apologize.
Okay, no problem. We've been here for a long time.
It is a long evening,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Any discussion on that? Okay, Mrs. Ettinger, would you take the roll call, please?
Betty Koenig?
Aye.
Natalie Gren?
Aye.
Eric Brooks?
Aye.
David Wad?
Aye.
Anthony Zenobia?
Aye.
Thomas Harlan?
Aye.
Carrie Kozlowski?
Aye.
Diane Voigt?
Aye.
Kelly Piasek?
Aye, passes 9-0.
Thank you. Apologize for that. The second action item was policy 2416, student privacy and parental access to information. Mr. Pat presented revisions recommended by Neola and the administration to policy 2416, student privacy and parental access to information. This policy is updated to improve the arrangement of the policy provisions to be more user-friendly and to update parental notification requirements. This policy is also revised to correct grammatical issues, and the update is recommended to have accurate policies. This policy was included in this evening's consent agenda. Our discussion item was in regards to the attendance update. Mr. Pat presented data on moderate and chronic absenteeism during the 24-25 school year. Moderate absenteeism is defined as 9 or more days, and chronic absenteeism is defined as 18 or more days. Per state statute, guardians can excuse their students for 10 days. Excusing a student for 10 days places the student into the category of chronically absent. The Student Services Committee will meet again on Thursday, October 2nd at 6 p.m. here in the boardroom. And Madam President, this completes the Student Services Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Harlan. Oh, thank you, everybody, for your time and attention tonight. I have good news, and that is that we have no need for an executive session this evening. But before that, are there any recommendations for future board or committee action or discussion items? Seeing none, that will conclude our meeting for tonight. Our next full board meeting will be on Wednesday, October 8th. So please keep a close eye on the October meeting schedule. It's a little bit different. So we'll see everybody Wednesday, October 8th here in the boardroom at 6:30 p.m. Thank you.